Welcome, everybody. It's 7:02 p.m. I'm going to call this meeting to order. Thanks for being with us tonight. If we could all please stand and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Robinson. Here. Gettle.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Billings. Here. And Glover.
Here. Perfect, thank you. We'll move into the Unified Police Department report. We'll hear from Chief Thomas.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. It seems like we just saw each other. I hope you got the August stats. I sent those out, I believe, just yesterday. I did have an opportunity to sit down with Lieutenant Morris and kind of show her the method to my madness and tracking and doing some statistical analysis of our case trends to help us out. We had 2,852 calls for service in August. That resulted in 979 general offense reports. Our citations were quite low, at least off our normal. We had 248. 45 of those being warnings, 203 being penalty citations. Our selective traffic enforcement shifts were almost none. I attribute a lot of this and these statistics to the overtime mandatory shifts that are being filled throughout all of UPD. It's just the bandwidth, and we talk about that in some of our workshops. Right now with the manpower shortages, we're actually just starting into our second month of mandatory overtime shifts for the UPD officers and detectives throughout the agency. So on the bright side, we are starting to see some good recruitment efforts. We've got quite a few people, as we call, in the pipeline. So, and a good number of those being already trained, so we can put them through a shorter training cycle and allow them to hit the road far sooner than if we were to get someone and put them through the post academy, put them through our training, and then through our field training officers. That's 10 months typically if they get through cleanly and without a problem. So I want to kind of just highlight Sergeant Chacon's shelter resource commitments and what she's been doing in our community. The CenturyLink has been a pretty active hub during its demolition. Obviously, there's a lot of metal debris, easy access, even though it's the facility or the curtilage is fenced off. It's very easy to get in there. And even as late as last week, the construction crew found some property had been stolen that was set for salvage. So it is, I went by there this morning, the building is completely down. They're still getting rid of debris, but the contractors have been really good about working with us and getting that building down quick. That's one less place for those that are out in our communities that refuse to use our resources, and they bed down in there. Sometimes they take the copper or steel for scrap, and it's just one less nuisance in the community. The mayor brought up a camp that was just about 80th South and State, where Trax goes over State on the east side of the road. I know the sergeant got in there. We're going to try to wait till the health department to get that camp cleaned up, but Sergeant Chacon went in there with her crew and just basically went to town and got that, for the most part, taken care of. There were also two that had been asked to leave, and they came back, and so they were cited the second time, told to stay out of there. And so it's for her and her crew. Once again, they're doing a heck of a job, keeping our community clean. Also, our DEU's been doing a great impact to not only our community, but Holiday as well as Mill Creek with some of their investigations. Last week, I sent the mayor and city manager some photographs of a hotel room where hundreds, if not a couple hundred of what we call blues, or those fentanyl pills, were found after we wrote a warrant to get in a room, along with a gun and quite a bit of paraphernalia. And that was actually up a little bit further east. This wasn't down in our typical corridor. So really good investigative follow-up for Sergeant Levin and his unit. I just want to mention real quick, Officer Lopez this morning, very early this morning, was involved in a peace disturbance. Long story short, when he was escorting someone over to his car to kind of de-escalate the situation, the suspect turned around and basically just let him have it with the closed fist right in the face. So he had to visit the hospital. Initially, we thought maybe some stitches and possibly a broken nose. He did get released. He's actually on duty and came in early today. And he's not any prettier looking than he was, but he's not any worse. So, but it's always, those are those nightmares that when that phone rings or I get the text at, I think it was 12:17 this morning, when you're in deep sleep, I really do worry about our men and women that are on our streets at night, keeping us safe. Want to mention that next week on Monday, we're going to have the Code 7 Cafe come over to the precinct. That's what that is a food truck that years ago was confiscated due to an investigation. They retrofitted it, and now we're bringing it to all the precincts and basically cooking them at no charge, hot dogs, hamburgers. And this isn't a daily thing. We've done each precinct per week. So next week, on Monday from 12 to 2:30 in the afternoon, and then that evening from 7:30 to 9 p.m., and then Thursday, 12:30 to 3 during the day, and 7:30 to 9, we'll be doing the same thing. And I would invite you, council, feel free to drop in. There's no charge. And the biggest benefit we've seen is just the camaraderie, able to rub elbows, ask questions, and meet people. We're also having the precinct commanders that we're traveling to each other's precincts, so we're not so siloed to where, when I'm out in Magden, no one knows who I am, because after a while we start seeing cops that I've never seen before. So it's kind of mixing up the social part of it. And last but certainly not least, I want to mention I'm really excited to have Lieutenant Morse come before you tonight. I will tell you that Lieutenant Malone, my executive officer, he's done a great job for me. He was also a part of the process. We have Lieutenant Torrin Chambers was also, so 3 people interviewed for that position and basically competed for it. I think they're all 3 great officers that represent UPD well, and certainly respect the council and mayor's opinion and decision on who they did choose. And April, I've had a couple of sit downs with her. She's currently running our internal affairs unit. She is busy. She keeps on promising to meet with me, and we have a little time. She tried to sneak in a meeting tonight to throw me off the trail of the workshop meeting we had earlier. And I didn't fall for it, at least that. But April also has, from the get-go, when we started Friends for Unified PD, the police canine support 501c3, she's been my ally and partner in that. So we go back a long ways. My heart's behind her, and my phone will be open to her at any time if she needs help or assistance or has questions regarding the community needs. And that's all I have for this evening. Council, any comments?
I've at least got a comment. This is your last city council meeting with us.
Yes, please.
Whoa, that's not what I was saying. We've been trying to convince you not to retire for a while, and you've not listened to us. So we got a couple extra months out of you, but not as long as we'd like. So for those of you that are unaware, Chief Thomas, is your last day with us is October 1st. You've been with Midvale since 2018.
Yes.
And in law enforcement since 1994.
Yes.
The year I was born. Just perfect timing, too.
He's 30.
Yeah, my birthday is coming right up real quick. And so, yeah, it's look at that. I was taking my first breaths as this guy was getting on the streets.
As a police officer.
$8 an hour back then.
Wow. It's improved a little.
Yeah.
But really, Chief, again, for those of you joining us for this meeting, we had a retirement surprise party for Chief Thomas. He was adamant that he didn't want anything, and we knew that if he knew about it, he wouldn't show up. So that's what we did for our workshop tonight. And so I said some of this there, but I just want to reiterate again. You've been really a mentor to me in this position. You've made me a better mayor and a better public servant. You've provided not only me, but this entire council opportunity after opportunity to learn about what you all deal with on the job. And as you know, and as I hope our residents know, almost 50% of our budget goes towards unified police. And so for me, coming in with pretty limited knowledge about law enforcement as a whole and kind of my own tunnel vision of what it was or wasn't, but wanting to make sure that I stepped into that role to learn more about what you all do and understanding that budget on the unified police side. But it's really been the fact that any opportunities that have come up to do ride-alongs with the DEU, or when there's multi-agency operations, or being able to go to training with the bomb squad, all of that has been so insightful for me to be able to better understand the roles, and it's because you were always thinking about those things of how can we make sure that myself and the council understands what you all do each and every day. So thank you for that. You've thrown yourself into neighborhood meetings that are sometimes tense and not always that fun. And you didn't run for office like the rest of us did. That's what we run for, is to have those tough conversations. But you've never hesitated to put yourself into that conversation, to have difficult conversations with people, to hear them, and to talk about the law enforcement side of it, and sometimes realities that comes along with. I've seen you go above and beyond recently, in fact, with an individual we've been working with today, that you went and we had an individual who told us she didn't have a good interaction with law enforcement at one time or multiple times, and she was going through something, but she did not want to call law enforcement. She didn't want any kind of interaction. And Chief heard about it and called her up and drove out to her, visited with her one-on-one, was able to work with her for the situation she was dealing with. And I think we've seen improvements from that. And it's just, again, you've shown time and time again that you will step up. You could have had somebody else do that for you. You could have had a whole precinct do that, or anybody else in the department, but you chose to step up to go do that and show her that you were here to try to help her. And it's that kind of service that really goes above and beyond, and it creates that community trust that we so badly need in law enforcement. And just really appreciate you, Chief. It's going to be weird not having you here. It's going to be sad not having you here. Everybody within the entire Unified Police Department tells us all the time that we've got the best chief in the department, and I believe it, and I know it. So we're going to be sad when you're gone, but so excited for you to enjoy retirement, to be at races, and to enjoy Bear Lake more.
Thank you.
I said a lot, but anybody else is welcome to say. No pressure, but.
If we keep talking and asking questions forever, he can never retire. I can keep talking if I need to.
I think I was telling Heidi earlier that was my plan.
I saw the agenda. I think you want to probably stop talking.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you all.
Appreciate you. Okay. All right. So with that, we're going to move into public comments. We do have several public hearings tonight. So if you're here for a public hearing, you will have time to give public comment on those public hearings later on in the agenda. If you are not here for a public hearing, now would be your time. And just as a reminder, I'm hoping I can do this, we have the State Street rezone, we have a Holden Street rezone, we have a Bingham Junction text amendment rezone, and then another text amendment. So if you're here for any of those, you will have an opportunity. But again, anything else, now is your time. Do we have any public comments? Come on up. State your name for the record, and then you'll be given 3 minutes. And I apologize. I'm going to ask everybody to stick to 3 minutes tonight because I know we're going to have several comments for the public hearings, and I want to make sure that we can get through this and get out of here at a decent time.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, Council. My name's Michelle Ernest Cameron. This is my brother, Levi Ernest, and we are developing the 375 West Millennium Way, just north of CenturyLink, and we just wanted to stand on Chief Thomas's last meeting and just give a positive shout out to him. He and Sergeant Jacone have been amazing to our property, and he will be sorely missed. They have gone above and beyond And just wanted to give a public shout out to all of their presents. So that was it, just a quick shout out.
Thank you.
Want to add anything?
You know, it's been interesting to see the demolition of the building, to watch the building come down and to see less and less homeless, people coming back and forth. And so we're grateful for, again, the presence of the force, but also the support of Midvale. We've worked with Bryant a little bit, and so just grateful for the city of Midvale for the great job you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, hi, I'm Nancy Beggs. Maybe you better cut me off like on the debates, but I've got, some stuff to say about drug use. I live right over the fence from the CenturyLink building, so I've been watching all that demolition. And we've had people like sleep under the tree that they've now torn out. But anyway, I just wonder about the drug use by McDonald's there in the hotel, 72 South in the freeway. Because I've lived there 15 years. When we first moved in, somebody kicked in our back door and took like 100 DVDs and change out of a change box and an MP3, just little things. So I'm sure they were taking it for drugs. And we put padlocks on everything, and nothing's happened since. But I would listen to this podcast called Project Recovery of these people who've had drug addictions. Usually it starts with opioids, and then they can't get them from their doctor anymore, can't steal them. So they start with heroin, which is cheap. And I hear, it's sold everywhere. People go downtown and get heroin. And then eventually they can recover. But so I always wish, somebody put on our Facebook page about this kind of thing. And so I wished I talked to the city planner about having a big meeting like with the police and where we can talk about what's going on. Because I had trouble with my next door neighbor, and they were like, well, it's private, he can't find out too much. Till he shot off a gun in his house and went to jail. So I'm thankful he's gone. But anyway, I heard on this podcast, 72 South in the freeway, that by McDonald's, this guy got on there and he's like, yeah, I was down and out, and I went there because I knew I could get drugs. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so he said, yeah, I slept behind Savers. And that was when usually these people hit bottom, and then they get help, like Casey Scott, who does the podcast. He was an alcoholic, got over it, and now he's all for addiction recovery. So anyway, I'm just so sick of that idea that there's drug right there, and why that can't be stopped. If somebody knows it's there, stop. My next door neighbor's dealing drugs. Finally, when he got sent to jail, they said, oh, he just, we couldn't really prove anything, and it was kind of like a low, not important thing. So I thought, but all these people that use drugs, they're stealing things, they're prostituting and ordering drugs they probably want to get off, but they can't. So I'm also wondering about drug addiction, help, how we can help people go out on the street, because this has never changed. Today I went to McDonald's, all these people sitting in a group, homeless, drugs. So anyway, that's my thoughts. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And it's my understanding that there were conversations about setting up a neighborhood meeting, and so happy to.
That's on me. I need to get it set up. We've talked about it, had a good conversation, and it's still on the plan to get that.
Yeah. And let people on the city are like, oh, don't judge these people, and it's not like we're saying they're drug addict, homeless, but they need help.
Yeah, and a neighborhood meeting will be helpful. There is a lot we're doing. It's a complicated system. In my official capacity, we can't speak in favor or against bonds that will be on the ballot, but Salt Lake County does have a bond on the ballot this year to support the criminal justice system and some of the work that is related to this, and I would encourage you to look at that.
Yeah, he said maybe help the businesses buy more lighting, cameras, because it's right down 72 South, and it kind of ends at State Street, and so, it's pretty.
And we've actually just started a program to help businesses make improvements like that. Yeah. So anyway, thank you, Nancy.
All right, thanks.
Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none. We are going to move on to reports. I'll be quicker than my comments for Chief Thomas, I think. As I told you all the last time, I had applied to be on the Utah League of Cities and Towns Board of Directors. I was elected to that position, so really excited about that. That will provide our city to have more of a seat at the table on forming policy decisions of where the league actually stands. They represent 248 cities and towns in the state, and we do a lot of work on making sure that cities are represented on housing and homelessness and all sorts of things. And so really just excited about that. We're actively participating in the Get to the River Festival. So last week we held a free movie in the park at the Bingham Junction Park, a movie called Upriver, which is a documentary about river restoration in Oregon. And then this Friday we're doing a paddle series where we go and we're going to actually be kayaking on the Jordan River. Shout out to and thank you to Unified Fire Authority. Their Swift Water Rescue Team will be involved with that there. Both there just in case, but because this is all about making people feel comfortable being on the water. A lot of people in this state might go kayaking, canoeing on a lake, but not necessarily the river, but we want people using the Jordan River. So they're going to be there teaching some water safety, and that's the whole goal of this event. So really excited about that. And then this Saturday, we are doing our Art House grand opening. That's just right here on Main Street. And that is Saturday at 6 p.m. So you should come and join us and support some local artists. That's all I got. Councilmember Billings.
Nothing today.
Councilmember Glover.
Congratulations on your appointment to the board. And Chief, again, thank you so much. We appreciate you. That's all I have.
Councilmember Robinson.
I just wanted to thank the chief for everything. Thanks for always having the officers back. Thanks for always having the citizens and us and educating us, and always bringing a sense of humor is very important, and I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the chief too. And one of my favorite stories happened just a couple months ago. It was at the at the outside out here. They were doing the murals, and I asked the chief, "Hey, chief, which one's your favorite? Which one's your favorite?" That's all I said, thinking he would know I meant, which mural. And then he started to list his favorite beers that he's had for the day at the beer garden, which is a new feature that we have here. And I was like, this guy's totally retiring. But I thought it was so fun. My wife was dying. She talks about that, and just, I think it just shows he's very personable, and we're really going to miss it. And one of my favorite stories that I'll never forget. So thanks, Chief.
Councilmember Gettle.
Thanks, Mayor, and continuing the Chief Thomas Love Fest. I want to thank you as well. It's been a pleasure working with you now for who knows how long, 7 years, I think, but it seems like yesterday, but it also seems like 1,000 years ago as well. We've done a lot of good things in Midvale, and you've been a part of those things that have positively impacted our community. And just thinking about the things, just the events that we, the council, have attended with you, like several of us were at a SWAT exercise with you where we had hoods on so that no one could identify us. And, you've been at our Christmas tree lighting parties and baby goat yoga. And, these are just things, I think I'm a little biased here, but I think that we have the best police chief in Salt Lake County, and we're going to miss you. I don't know of many other police chiefs where council members can text them and a picture of a dilapidated trailer that's parked somewhere where it shouldn't be. And, within minutes, the chief will get back and say that he's taking care of it. And, it's just issues like that we're so glad as council members and the mayor as well that we can have that kind of relationship with you that's not contentious. I mean, obviously, we don't always agree on everything, but I think that, during some times that were a little bit turbulent, 2020 was a turbulent year for everyone for a number of reasons, including a pandemic, but also there was some social justice unrest across the valley, and Chief Thomas was prepared for anything that could have happened in Midvale. Luckily, it didn't, and it's just a testament to the type of leader that you are, the number of people who were here tonight to pay tribute to you as you enter the next phase of whatever you do next, which I'm sure is going to be nice and exciting. And I will probably by force of habit still send you pictures of dilapidated trailers along Bingham Junction Boulevard. So maybe I'll have a chat thread with you and Lieutenant Morse together. So just wanted to thank you for that. It's been a pleasure working with you. Thanks, Chief.
City Manager Dahl.
I also just want to join in making some comments regarding the chief. I think that, so I came up through community development, redevelopment, and really didn't have a whole lot to do with law enforcement until 2020. And while we knew each other, we were in meetings from time to time and stuff like that, but our relationship when I took this position definitely changed. It became one where I get more communication from him than I do my wife. And I also think that it's also, this journey that I've taken with regards to law enforcement has been one where we've had more meetings because of the things that have been going on with the changes at UPD and all that, where I've gotten to know just more officers. I think that there's this thing too for like someone like me, like in some ways you're unknowable. And what I mean by that is we can appreciate you, we can share good times, but no one will ever experience the law enforcement experience unless you're in law enforcement. And we can hear the stories. I can read the reports that you give me every morning. I can get the emails or the texts that you provide about different things that are going on. And that's not the same thing as actually being in it and dealing with it. And so that's why I say it's hard. And I think that's why there's this view of law enforcement that is difficult for people, because we can hear the stories, but it's really unknowable. The other thing is, I think that when it comes to being a public servant, every interaction that we have, the good, the bad, you take a piece of that interaction with you. All of us do. But when you see the stories that we deal with, that you deal with, have dealt with, you have to take a piece of that. And those are some of the hardest things that are out there. And it's a burden, and I think all of the officers here today, you hold that burden, and I thank all of you, but I really thank you, Chief. It's been it's been wild. And when I say unknowable, here's my funny part of the story. I don't know, I got a little emotional there or whatever, but I always knew that the chief was in the military. And for all the times that we worked together, I had this like, he was Marine Recon, or he was some sort of special forces. And it was only in the last couple of weeks that I was talking to him about it. I was like, what was it like behind enemy lines? That kind of thing, right? And he's like, I was in avionics, so I was like fixing planes and stuff. And but part of this just gets into, while he might not have been Marine Recon, we've always thought of him as being a strong leader, someone who we know can deal with whatever the most difficult situation is. And I want to go through and tell you guys, because like the list is so long of all of this crazy things that we've been informed on and talked about. Anyways, you've done a lot for us. You've taken the burden of our community on your shoulders, dealing with a lot of things. We cannot express how much that means, how much I appreciate it. I have learned a lot from you, and I hope you have the best retirement. So thank you. That's all I have this evening.
Leave it to the city manager to out-talk me. All right. Because we've got one action item tonight to appoint our new chief, and we've got some folks here who I think would like to see that. Before we jump into the public hearings, I'm going to ask for a motion that we go to our action item, which is resolution number 2024 R43 now, and then continue on with the agenda as normal.
Mayor, I move that we proceed to action item A, consider resolution number 2024 R23.
Second.
43.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right. All right, consideration of resolution number 2024 R43, ratifying the selection of April Morris as the Unified Police Department's Midvale Precinct Chief. Hear from City Manager Dahl.
At this point, I don't know if you're aware, but the current chief is retiring.
What? When?
And so several months ago, Chief Thomas made us aware that he was going to be retiring. Given that we would be needing to fill that position, we opened the position, had a interview process, which has been discussed, and a selection committee made up of representatives from Midvale, White City, and UPD selected Lieutenant April Morse to be the next Midvale Precinct Chief. Just real quick, the reason that White City is participating in that for people in the public is that our precinct provides services for both Midvale and White City. Lieutenant Morse has 27 years of law enforcement experience, during which she has had experience in patrol, investigations, and administration. She has had 14 years of supervisory experience, including as the executive officer for UPD's investigation, special operations, and professional standards divisions. She also has a master's of social work from Boston University and is a graduate of the FBI National Academy. In addition to her experience and her education, she provided glowing letters of recommendation, interviewed very well, and had a well-considered plan for approaching the position of chief. For these reasons, the selection committee I mentioned earlier selected her as the next chief. As you're aware, the precinct chief is an employee of UPD and reports to the UPD chief of police. That being said, they also, as you've heard mentioned, they work very closely with city staff on issues. But the selection process for chief is governed by UPD policy. Currently, the policy allows for the selection to be done by the communities that the precinct chief will be serving. And but it also means that as part of that process, not only do you have to ratify the selection, but so does White City and then the UPD board. That currently is up for consideration on Thursday, and once that's done, the appointment will be complete. The council is being asked to consider the resolution ratifying the selection of Lieutenant April Morse as the next Midvale Police Chief. With that, Lieutenant Morse is available to answer any questions if you have any, or if there's any process questions, I could answer those as well.
You want to come up?
Hello, Mayor, board members,
You're going to have to get used to saying council members.
council members, excuse me. Yeah, I'm a little nervous, so.
Any questions for Lieutenant Morse?
So I always ask everyone this.
Okay,
It's a very important question.
great.
Utah or BYU?
Oh, Utah.
Okay,
Utah.
okay, that's good.
I'll just say, as Matt just laid out, Lieutenant Morse impressed us for a lot of reasons. For me, there were something that really stood out for me was something that I tell folks, especially who are critical of law enforcement. I think UPD is the right model for anybody who's critical of law enforcement because we provide so many different opportunities. And this is really simple and it makes sense, but every cop has a different personality, just like all of us do. And there are some roles that fit better for one cop over another. Not every cop wants to work in a school and not everyone wants to be doing homicide work. And UPD provides that when you get into this service, you can really make sure that you find the right fit. And we also make sure by having specialty units, I think that we help our officers get in less trouble because while they're still asked to do about 500,000 jobs, they're not asked to do 1 million jobs, and to know how to respond to every single situation. And so for me, I really appreciate UPD for that reason. And so as we were interviewing Lieutenant Morse, and she talked about going and getting a master's degree in social work, and I hope it's okay that I share this. The thing that Lieutenant Morse talked to us about was seeing a trend or issues with officers who are having traumatizing events on the job, and then causing some sort of misconduct later on. And she was noticing this and going, how do we be preventative in what we're doing to make sure that we don't get to that point? And so going to school to learn what could be done at that level, and then taking it back to the department to implement. I mean, to me, I think that shows just going above and beyond in your work, showing the care for the work, and making law enforcement better. And so that was something that she shared with us that I was really impressed by. And at the UPD board level, she often gets to come before the board with new grant initiatives, especially around mental health, behavioral health resources for officers. And again, just trying to make sure that our department is healthy, that our officers are well taken care of, which in turn will ensure that our community is well taken care of. So with that, I couldn't be more thrilled to have Lieutenant Morse as our next chief. But again, she's here for questions if there are any.
I don't have a question, but I did want to just note the historic nature of your appointment to Midvale City Police Chief. As far as I know, we've never had a woman serve in this role, and I think that that's incredibly important, and I think that's a historic moment for our community to have a woman in this position. And certainly it's not the reason why anyone is hired for this type of position, but I think it's also very important to recognize the historic nature. I mean, there is, I forget her name. Oh, it's escaping me. Mill Creek has, so it's not, totally novel to the UPD model, but here in Midvale it is, and I appreciate that very much. And your credentials, they say everything about your career, and I think you're going to do a great job in this community, so we're looking forward to it.
Thank you.
All right, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and approve Resolution 2024 R43, ratifying the selection of April Morse as the Midvale Precinct Chief.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Billings.
Yes?
Glover.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
And Gettle.
Yes.
Welcome aboard.
Passes
Thank you
unanimously.
very much.
April, don't go too far. Get in. We're going to do some quick pictures, both to welcome Chief Morse and to celebrate Chief Thomas. So just give us a moment as we. You'll be working with her. Do you,
Thanks for humoring me.
Laura? Do you want to step through or can we? Do you?
I'm too short.
Do you need to move over? While technically the UPD board has to vote on this on Thursday, I'm also anticipating a unanimous vote there. So, but we'll keep you all updated.
Mayor, I move that we return to our consent agenda item.
We.
Public hearing?
Sorry, we're moving into public hearings.
Oh, sorry, I was on the wrong.
That's okay. I think we're.
Mayor, I move that we move into the public hearings.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Our first public hearing is consider a rezone request to change the zoning from single-family residential 1 and State Street commercial to multifamily residential medium to high density for lots located at 58 West, 7500 South, and 7444 South State Street. Information regarding the proposed regulations, prohibitions, and permitted uses that the property will be subject to if the rezone is adopted can be found in Midvale City Code 1774. Elizabeth.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so here is the subject property that we are discussing tonight. It does comprise 4 separate parcels totaling about 1.66 acres. And I'll be pretty brief with my presentation. The applicant does also have a presentation, and they've been very thorough, and there was a lot of material submitted to you on this project. I've included a copy of the concept plan Again, this is just an idea. Staff has not reviewed this for height, setbacks, any kind of site plan review, so it's really just a concept of what could go here if it was rezoned to RM25 to allow for some kind of higher density, so they are proposing townhomes currently. This is our section of code that deals with zone changes and required criteria in order to find and approve one. Staff finds that this proposal could meet or does meet 1 and 3 in that it provides for a community need in point number 1 there, and then number 3 that it's in the public interest to encourage redevelopment of the area. There is, it's kind of blighted a little bit, run down, so redevelopment would probably help the area. The general plan then also does identify this as being in the State Street Opportunity Area, and we also found that it supported goal number 1, that some higher density residential could help support mixed use and commercial areas on State Street. I think that's all I have. I've included a motion. Should we get to that point in the meeting, I can always pull it back up. But otherwise, I think the applicant is ready to speak unless you have any questions for me.
Any questions for Elizabeth?
Okay, thank you.
Come on up. And then just please state your name.
John Simnani with Signature Homes. Our office is at 630 East South Temple. I just wanted to take the chance to thank everybody involved, from the public to all the city departments. This has been a learning process for us, and hopefully we can come to some sort of resolution here and forward this project. I think it would be a positive impact on the community, and yeah, we hope this is considered. So the project is located at 7444 South State Street, and the current zoning, as Elizabeth has stated, is the majority of it is single family SF1, and then a piece of it is SSC. And the proposed zoning that we're asking we are granted is multifamily residential zone. The property is comprised of 4 total parcels, 1.66 acres, and the SF1 again makes up the majority, but the SSC section is right on State Street, so on the east side of the property. It fronts State Street. Now, currently, the property hosts 2 primary structures. One of them is a commercial use as a massage spa right now, and the property behind is a single-family home being rented. The property owner has done, I think, as good of a job as he can maintaining the properties. The 2 structures on there are older; they're 1930s properties, and maintenance just becomes more and more costly as things get older, as we know. The rest of the property is hosted with overgrown weeds, some miscellaneous cars, and some trash on the site, and it's a lot of open space. And I think that naturally in a high density city can be an attraction for crime. So Elizabeth already stated this, but I just wanted to reiterate on in Municipal Code 17.3.1E, it states that in order for a project to qualify for a rezone, the applicant must demonstrate that the rezone is necessary for at least one of 3 reasons. And the project, in our perspective, is necessary for reasons 1 and 3. And we've listed those there. I don't think I need to read through them because I think the rest of the slides kind of detail as to why the zone change is compliant with these reasons. So just from a general plan perspective, it seems as though this is a pretty black and white property for redevelopment. The use of that is what I will go into later, but just at a base level, I think the property is a good candidate for redevelopment. The property, so whenever we receive a property, either from a broker or we find a property, we look at it initially in 2 different aspects, a land use aspect and a zoning aspect. And from a current land use perspective, there really isn't a ton going on. There's the commercial piece and the single family piece, but then at a zoning perspective, it is clashing with some of the or with most of the bordering properties. And I've got some metrics in the next slide to show that, but we understand that rezones are discouraged, and we try to be as critical as we can before asking for a rezone. And we look at all possible land use scenarios with the current zoning, because coming in and asking for a rezone is a process, and trying to get through something like this is a lengthy process, and we understand that. But for this specific property to achieve something that the market's demanding and stay consistent with the neighborhood, I believe a rezone is necessary. And just to list some of these off, to the north is an RM25 apartment development, Remington Apartments. Also to the north, sharing a border, is the Utah Autism Academy. It's a very nice, well-kept building. And then to the south is Remington Apartments, Madison Court, which is a condo complex, RM25 as well, and then also Charles Lou Violin. And RM25 and SSC, if you look along State Street, seem to pair very well together, and they seem to be a natural fit. And so that's one thing indicating towards RM25, but I'll get into that in the next slides. One issue that came up in the Planning Commission meeting on the 14th was some people were questioning the validity of the rezone, and a couple of people brought up spot zoning, and so I looked into that, and we already had this in mind, but I didn't provide any clear metrics as to whether this would be a spot zone or not. And so I put this up here just to make it a little clearer, but 69% of the project's land area is bordered with SSC and RM25, and these are approximate numbers. And then 31% of it is bordered with SF1. Now, there is an easement that Mr. Dan Peters has a right to on the long strip on the very bottom there. And we're going through some of the details of the engineering currently, but from my understanding, we cannot utilize that for much of our project. So it'll be even more usable land area shifted towards that red portion of the screen. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that there's a far higher percentage of the property that lands within an SSC and an RM25 border, which are higher intensity zones, than there is SF1. So that was our indication that no, this is not spot zoning. If anything, we're at risk for, if continual development keeps going, then we're at risk for this property, if it stays the way that it is, to eventually become non-compliant with the general plan. So also part of the general plan that we took very seriously are these opportunity areas. We read into those quite a bit, and so our property is located within the Middle State Street opportunity area, and they're defined as areas where market forces, increased land values, and opportunities for redevelopment of underutilized land are likely to bring about changes in land uses. One of the points that were brought up in these opportunity areas was that development is to take place along major streets. Now, State Street is a main corridor not only to Midvale but to Salt Lake County. And on page 12, and so considering that, we have to look at traffic. So on page 12 of the general plan, from the 2015 through 2040 regional transport plan, it states that improvements are needed along State Street from 8,000 south to the Sandy border. Now, that was just one indication, just our property not being, or that section of State Street not being identified as an issue. Just there, that was one indication in in the right direction for an understanding of what a positive rezone may look like. But we continue to look, and that'll be detailed on the last slide. Anyway, another section of the opportunity areas that we looked at was that this project, that opportunity areas inherently, and it states this in the plan, that are anticipated to be at higher density than current land uses. So that was another indication that the general plan is calling for some sort of redevelopment. On page 46 of the general plan, it states that minor to major changes in current land uses are likely to occur due to market forces. We view this as a relatively minor change and a smooth transition to single family. You know, when we look at RM25 by itself, we hear 25 units per acre, but when you get down to the nuts and bolts of the zoning code, it really pencils out to be around 14 to 16 units per acre, depending on the development. And then lastly, for the opportunity areas, we looked at the goal compliance of this specific opportunity area. We believe that this project is compliant with one, as Elizabeth already mentioned, to support the development of higher value commercial and business uses through the development of mixed use and higher density residential uses. On either side of the property, there are commercial uses that are not. They don't seem to be going anywhere. There's a 90s building and then a well-kept 1930s building, the Charles Louis Violin, but they are both in great shape. And so they would be supported, and going north as well, there's very close commercial to it. So those would be supported by the development. And I think it's important to note that we intend to sell these as a for sale product to individual homeowners. This would not be a rental community. And we would act as the general contractor on this, as we do on all of our projects. So being granted this opportunity would be a privilege for us. Considering different zoning options, this was something else that was brought up in the planning commission meeting. As we whittled them down, we came to RM25, but then also considering mixed use. We would love to do some sort of mixed-use development. We've looked at a couple pieces of property that we're still looking at in Midvale and considering those things. But on this property in particular, it's difficult with the shape. The shape of this property is limited quite a bit of land uses, but it makes things more difficult. So with mixed use, the issue with that is that it's typically paired with some sort of rental community, and it brings high traffic. But because we are looking to sell these as a for sale product and bring in some home ownership, a commercial node paired with some sort of residential community from a planning perspective doesn't quite work, at least in my eyes, especially when we only have one access off State Street. That's pretty much it on that one. And then my last slide here is on traffic and parking. So this was something that I think was a pretty big misunderstanding in the planning commission meeting, and I hope I can provide some clarity here. We will not be accessing this property off of 7500 South. We've only proposed to access this property off of State Street, in and out of State Street, and that brings its own challenges. But to be as considerate as we can to the current land uses, we've tried to mitigate as much disturbance as possible. And we will continue to do that if we are granted the zoning. Looking at State Street traffic, 6 lanes of traffic along State Street, or six lanes on State Street with the center turn lane, so you can go either direction on State Street. The good thing is that we're close to a light, so passerbys slow down along State Street, so allowing more entry and exit opportunities for the residents. And then parking was another issue that was brought up by some of the residents in the last meeting, with apartment complexes parking closer to their neighborhood. Without the access to 7500 South, I don't see a scenario in which any of our residents here would be parking in the communities to the west. The SF1 to the west. Especially because these would be 2-car garage units. There'd be overflow parking on site, and additionally, I think about a third of the units would have some sort of two-car parking appropriate driveways. So there are some engineering things that we can absolutely look at and make sure that we are accommodating all of our residents so that they are not bleeding into other development. And then here's something else that I failed to do in the last one. I didn't put my phone number up. I'm more than happy to take any calls. I'm more than happy to meet with people. I just want to have the conversations if I can. And so anybody's welcome to take a picture of that, call me, and we can sit down and have a meeting. Because I really hope to be part of this community. Myself and Mitch, we've put a lot of time and effort into this, and we think we could bring some really, really nice housing to Midvale. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any clarifying questions from the council before we go into public comment? Okay.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, please.
Sorry, earlier I should have mentioned, we have received a lot of public comment for this item. So we did receive that through email and through petitions that were included in the packet. I believe Rory sent some follow-up public comment that we got since we sent out the packet. And I did include the minutes to the Planning Commission. We got a lot of public turnout there as well. So just wanted to make that very clear.
Thank
Sorry.
you. I was going to make that
Thanks.
note as well, that we did, the electronic comments were passed along to us as a council. We have reviewed those. With that, if there is a motion to open up the public.
Motion to have open public hearings?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, moving to public comment. You can come up. We're going to do, again, asking everybody to stick with the 3 minutes. We're going to put up a timer so you can pace yourself on that. And you just need to state your name. I'm ready when you are.
My name is Sally Smith, and I live at 150 West, 7500 South. And my question is, I'm very glad that I'm here tonight because the developer, Mr. Semeny, has cleared up a lot of questions, and I'm sure that through your, the information that you received from the citizens of this area, that maybe the question that I'm going to ask tonight, or the comment I'm going to make, you've already addressed. There's 2 things that I wanted to look at, and one is the entrance into that, excuse me, into that new development from State Street. Are they going to remove the massage parlor completely? And secondly, because you do have to go further west and turn to come back to get to the area from the north, are they going to change that road so that that can be done easier? Because now they're going down, I know, to the light. Is there a U-turn? Will there a U-turn be available, or how will they enter it? And the third question is, where is the parking? You said 2.5, I believe, parking spots. Exactly where is the parking for them? And are there going to be 4 units on that acre? Is that correct? 4 units on that acre. Those were the questions that I had. And secondly, in rezoning, how is that going to affect the commercial buildings in the front of the development? Is that only going to be for the area itself, or is all that area going to be zone changed for? And it's going to be condominiums? Townhomes, okay, townhomes. Those are the questions that I have, because as a resident of Midvale, I've been here 9 years, I've seen such a huge change in this quaint little city that I used to be a part of. One of my biggest concerns is the commercial, the apartment complexes that have gone up. I'll give you one example. The apartment complex right across the street from the Senior Citizen Center, which you all are aware of, there's no parking for them to park. And when those stores are opened, where are they going to park when they want to shop? If they can't park on Main Street. they will come over to the Senior Citizen Center, which is so many, it's used now. And so therefore, we have to think about the impact of parking, the impact of getting off State Street to go into that complex itself, and also how that's going to be rezoned and how it's going to affect the community as a whole. Because I know that there are people who are very upset about so many apartments going into Midvale City. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. It's public comment, and you all can ask whatever questions you want. Generally, for public comment, it is not a Q&A. If you ask, and then this can, afterwards, our council will have the opportunity to engage with questions. So maybe you ask something that our council would also like to know the answer to. But just know that we may not engage in that way.
He gets 20 minutes, I get 3. Something wrong with that. My name is Dan Peters, and I reside at 52 West, 7500 South, numbers 2 and 3. I own a duplex, but I don't rent it out because I'm not in favor of renting. He spoke of one of the things that he says that there's a majority of this property run down with old cars and growing weeds. It's not the majority. The growing weeds are the owner's responsibility, and I've requested that they be enforced to cut it, and they don't. Different subject necessarily. Traffic is a really key thing here, and no matter, even if you exit onto State Street, 75 is a beautiful bypass all the way to the frontage. Take it up, you can curl right off of Cottonwood, hit the light there at 72nd and the freeway, either way. It'll cascade on you, I promise. Or you can be brave and try and make a left-hand turn. That's a beauty, huh? Pray for the Wildcats. For structure, the thing that I worry about, because I border the property to the south, the proposed shows that 11 feet and a few inches, they're going to put this 30-plus foot building 11 feet off my property. Now that's not so bad, I guess, but 20 feet to the west, where the drainages are, they've lost sunrise. They don't get any sunrise anymore. Most of that's just going to be covered, just blanketed in shade and lack of privacy, because if you think of this property being that tall, I mean, you get into the second story, you're looking at, what, 12, 14 feet on a window? That's pretty good view on anything. Go to the third story. You're looking at, oh, gosh, 20, 22, 23 feet. Man, you can imagine what you can see from that height. Now, if you want to look onto my property, you're not going to see much but me, maybe sometimes half naked doing work out in the backyard. That's not imagery I would recommend, by the way. But that is one of the largest concerns. The other is the deterioration of the traditions, the mindset, the attitude of this little community that we've had for so long. I've been here 20 years. Castles have been here 25. Butler's pushing 50. Drainey's have been here so long they got a street named after them. And these are the people that basically are in this community. So I hope you guys give that some consideration. That's a lot for us to take. My skyline's gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Just so everybody's aware, yeah, if you were ever before this council and you have something that you are applying for, and I chair this meeting, I will give you the time as the applicant to take the time to explain it. And so that's what happened here tonight, and we do that in others. But that's courtesy to the applicant. And again, if you're ever here, we'll make sure we do the same. We have other public comments.
Maureen Butler. I want to apologize to those that got my email for one thing that I said. Because of Zillow and Homes, the fact that they put this out, that the city's going to help change the zoning property on it. And I said something like, developers already have city changing the zones on their ads on homes.com and Zillow. If it is a done deal, why are we asked to participate? I'm sorry that I put that in. I was a little bit dicey and a little bit catty, and I shouldn't have done it, because I know what public meetings are for. It's just that for a lot of people, they do feel like they come, they get kind of heard. Mr. Somnomny talked about the fact that it's only going to go out on State Street, which is wonderful. There is no U-turn. And if they do a U-turn, I don't know whether you've ever been in the left-hand lane or the right-hand lane, and the guy decides to do a U-turn in the middle, and just, I've seen multiple people almost get hit because of those things. They're going to come down 7500 South. If they want to go to the freeway, they're not going to make any kind of a turning because there's not going to be any other turn there. That's the only way to turn. We already have multiple people coming down. In fact, I've asked about down at the end of 7500, by the cemetery, there's the big sign that says no big trucks allowed. So we've been having a lot of semis come down the street and all that. So I asked about that. And I was given the unfortunate answer that we can't do anything about it. We're just a little side street. We're not a main street. At one point we had a traffic report that said we could have 2,000 cars on our street every day. If we have 2,000 cars on our street every day, I can never get out of my driveway. I appreciate all of the extra info that Mr. Somnani went through tonight, because this isn't what it was done before. But we do believe that putting these townhomes, we know what townhomes can come, and when people leave, they become rental property. It's a beautiful neighborhood that's just over the fence, built by Mr. Smith and he and his family, and they are custom homes, and they are really, really good homes. So I would ask that even if, like up by Miss Billings' place, the community behind Harmon's might be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? We don't bite, I promise.
Oh, I just have that problem. My name is Ashley Castle. I live at 52 West, 7500 South in number 1 and number 4, respectively. A lot of people have brought up a lot of the concerns that we also have. I also want to mention we also have rights to the easement that is included in this, in his plan. We're concerned also about the height of these. It's already zoned single family, but also with a duplex overlayment. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. But we understand that this property needs to be developed at some point. What we would prefer is that we keep that single family duplex overlayment. Like everybody has said, these townhomes, they're going to be towering over our properties. They can turn into rental properties within 30 days. We're not comfortable with that, obviously. Traffic issues also. 7500 South State Street is also going to be an issue. I mean, it's already pretty packed at rush hour times, as you all know. They block intersections and that sort of thing. So adding this many more vehicles to the area is going to be a problem. I'm also very concerned with foot traffic coming down that easement into our neighborhoods and between actually three homes. The easement that's being talked about, there's homes right on either side of it, and then there's Mr. Peters' home back behind mine. We also don't want more foot traffic coming into the neighborhood. I think that's all that I have for you guys today. I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I go again?
Appreciate you asking this guy.
I apologize if what I'm saying is redundant. My batteries are dead, so please bear with me. I'm Sandra Smith. I've been here 67 years in Midvale. When we built our home, there were codes and restrictions that we had to obey, and one of them was having a resident that was complementary to the other homes in the area, which we've tried to maintain. Our little area is older. Like I said, I've been there 67 years, but the homes are well kept. And I'm afraid, I live next to the field, and we've kind of been nervous about all the weeds that are there with the fire danger of the 4th of July and the Midvale harvest days. We just kind of hold our breath all the time that there won't be a fire and burn part of our home and fence down. So I know there has to be something there, and I hate to see it come. We have had this beautiful view for 67 years, but I was hoping that you would perhaps have some development that would extend the feeling of the neighborhood that we have there on Maple Street and Drainey Lane. And certainly a high-rise complex is not going to keep that feeling of unity and friendship. It kind of has seemed like Midvale's like a monopoly board. Some developer comes along and throws the dice and wants to build something, and rather than having it all unified, we're having little dabs here and there. And I'm hoping that you'll keep it as a single family and keep our neighborhood safe, our property values where they are. Thank you. I've loved Midvale all these years, and hopefully it will continue to grow like a community that is unified and together.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to close. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll close public comment, move into council discussion. Questions, comments from council?
I have a few. As a question for, can we still have development agreements? Okay. I have several things that, if we just rezone it, they could come back and they can put in apartments or whatever they want, as long as it meets the current zoning. I don't want to see that. I want to see a development that we know we're going to get. So that's one thing. So I would prefer a development agreement. The other problems that I see is there is not much of a transition of height between the single family and the development. And I've always pushed that we need some type of a transition, whether it be lower units against the single family, whether we put maybe basements in them or whatever, but the height is not so high against the single family. Once we get up to on the north end coming out towards State Street, I don't have a problem with those being higher because we've got behind them, we've got apartments and we have commercial buildings. So to me, that's fine. Let's see what else was there. I gotta look at my notes. So the transition, the screening and heights, and a development agreement, so that we end up getting what you're proposing. Just if we zone this tonight, you can come back and put apartments in it. And I don't want to see that. And I don't think any of the people that live in my district want to see that. So those are the things that I'm really, really concerned about. Traffic, I hate to say it, but traffic's going to get worse no matter what we do. And there's gonna be some type of a development go in there eventually. And to me, I really love the idea that we are selling these to people that are gonna own them. That's great. Hopefully we can look at, and we haven't really seen what kind of actual structures are gonna look like or anything like that. Those kind of things we'd like to see, to make sure that we have something that looks really nice. In a minute, we'll let you back up if we do. Those are some of my really big concerns, that we really work with the neighbors. It needs to be developed, but we need to, I've been here 75 years, okay, in Midvale.
You're not even that old, Paul.
I am. And I appreciate our citizens, and for me, they're more important than the development. Now, the development's important to Midvale, and it's important to me, but not if we give away the things that are important to our citizens. Does that make sense? Thank you.
Thank you. Comments, questions? I think Councilmember Glover goes home every day, looks in the mirror and claps to himself, but, so I'm sure he very much appreciates it, but I want to make sure that business continues on, and so if we could just keep that at minimum, appreciate it.
I actually had a quick question for planning, sorry. Yeah. Elizabeth, it's SF1, correct? What's the max amount of floors in that current zoning? Is that two and one half? Yeah. Okay.
So it's pretty much close to what it.
Yeah. That's all I have for right now. Let me think about that for a minute.
I just had a question about, because I do like the idea of getting a developer agreement and what Councilmember Glover had said. And so I guess my question for that is, if that's something that we decide we want to pursue, does that mean we don't pass it tonight, or can we pass it with an agreement tonight? How does that work?
Can we?
Sorry.
Oh, just wondering, because I like what Councilman Glover said about developer agreement. I do agree that we want to make sure that we're getting what the community wants, what Midvale wants. So what does that mean for tonight in particular, if that's the direction we decide we want to go?
I would suggest that you table the decision then, pending staff being able to work on a development with the developer that's satisfactory for the city council.
Thank you.
My only thought of that is we can't make the development agreement be for sale or rental, right? We could make it be a project generally, but I don't think you can tell a property owner they have to sell it versus rent it.
There are definitely Fair Housing Act issues, that the city would wade into uncomfortable water by trying to put its finger on the scale of whether or not it's rental or sale property.
And I think the shape of the property is weird enough that what we're looking at is what we're going to get either way. So for me, my big worry is rental versus for sale, but we can't make him guarantee that. So I don't know if the exercise is as good as it can be in other situations, but that's just my thought.
Can anything with the CCNRs be done to, I don't know if this is area that we can wade into, but with the CCNRs being in place for a project like this, they actually can limit rental capacity. I don't know if that's something we can include in our development agreement. I don't actually know how that looks. So Garrett, I'm looking at you because I'm lost.
Again, I would feel uncomfortable wading into that because there are legal issues about discriminating between for sale or rental properties, and the indirect effects that come from that. If the developer chooses to do that of their own volition, that's something that they can do. But whether or not we should be involved in that process is probably a separate matter.
And my question is, this might be for the developer, a lot of times developers, there's plenty that do for sale and rental, but a lot of them specialize in one or the other, right? So I'd like to know what this developer generally does. I don't know if we can ask him, because if he is a for sale only kind of person, then I'm much more inclined to want to do it, then have a different person come in that's a rental, and that's a different situation, you know?
I mean, we can't tell them they have to do a development agreement. That's not our role. Our role is to either pass or not pass the zoning, but we can also tell them that we would entertain them to come up with a development agreement that will meet some of the criteria that we need, right? I mean, they have the option to come back to us if they so, they don't have to though.
So, because this is a legislative decision, you have the ability to condition your approval of the rezone on them accepting a development agreement that's satisfactory, but again, within some of the limitations we face. But they also have the option that if they don't want to do development agreement, they can still ask for you to make they can still ask for you to consider their application as is.
Okay.
But in that scenario, we could say, we asked for a development agreement, you haven't provided us with that. So that can be a basis in and of itself for us to deny the rezone request.
Yes.
Elizabeth, I'm looking at you. Do we know we were just talking about how many stories. Do we know within how many feet the height difference is between what could be built there right now versus the rezone?
I think the overall difference is like 7 or 8 feet between SF1 and the RM25.
Thank you.
But as far as the heights, if we had a development agreement, that could be in, like on the west side there, we could say you can only go so high, right?
Sure, yeah. Garrett can correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think that's okay. Yeah.
So those are the types of things that, in my mind, that I would like to see those kinds of things, to be able to, our citizens to be able to help us understand what would work for them, but also work for the developer.
Yeah, and I think if you end up going the development agreement route, it would be helpful for staff and the applicant to know exactly what you want to see, like next to that west property line, you want there to be a graded height. So, thank you.
I just want to say generally, this is one of those times when I think what we see tonight is a great example of just members of the community coming together. The developer, I've seen meetings like this where the developer is nowhere to be found. So the fact that you guys are here tonight to listen to not only our input, but more importantly, the community's input, I just want to thank everyone, including the developer and including the residents who are going to be most impacted by this. I love to see people come to our council meetings and a lot of times we hear things like, you guys don't listen to us, but we really, really do. And I think Lorraine Butler can attest to the fact that, she's the one who's been to most of these meetings. And, sometimes a developer comes in with a great plan that, we listen to input from the community and we're able to get a better product for the community. And I think that is where this is likely headed, where we have a developer who is here at part of the conversation, willing to listen to input from all sides. And I think, listening to a majority of comments, everyone realized that this area is going to be redeveloped at some point. And I think now is the time for us to get the things into place that makes it very attractive for the residents who live there now. And also, we have a duty to, us as elected officials, we have a duty to make sure that we have a good mix of housing for the entire city. And we don't have a great inventory of for sale housing in Midvale. And, that's a bigger topic. We're talking about like middle class and the shrinking of middle class. One of those reasons is there's not housing for people to afford who are, under the age of 40. So, I'm not saying that these townhomes are going to be expensive when they're on the market, but, that's the market now. And if we get more inventory of townhomes like this, maybe we will start to see a reduction in some of the starter home, townhome prices for people to start to own property and create generational wealth for their own families. So I think that I agree with Councilmember Glover. I would love to see a development agreement in place. I know that this is going to be redeveloped one way or another. So, you know, if that's the consensus of the council, I would certainly go that way. But, you know, I'm comfortable with the rezone as it is, because I think, you know, talking to the developers, you know, I think I've seen developers come in here and you know instantly they do not have the community's interests at heart. And these folks seem to pass that test. So those are my thoughts on this. I know it's going to get into the weeds here of, like, you know, I've seen this happen before where, you know, we all might think of different things we would like to see in a development agreement, and that can get a little hairy, because what Paul might want to see or Councilmember Glover might want to see is not necessarily what, you know, then we have to try to cobble together 3 votes up here of what we want to see in this development agreement. So that can get a little dicey, as it has in the past. So my recommendation would be to, you know, vote on the rezone request tonight, and if it passes, great. If it fails, you know, we go from there as well. But make that contingent upon the successful execution of a development agreement. That way, you know, the developer's not wasting a whole lot of time and money putting together a development agreement. They come back and be like, well, we don't like that. Or, you know, we have even more opposition from the community at that point. So that would be my recommendation. I don't know how other council members feel about that.
How does that work legally?
I don't think we would be able to pass it contingent on some sort of development agreement, because it provides no, it could remain indefinite of whether or not this ordinance ever goes into effect. So I think my preference would be, if we're going to go down that route of the development agreement, that we table it, and then it becomes contingent on us being able to work something out. And if we can't do that in a reasonable period of time, then staff will come back to the council and put it on the agenda to inform them that we haven't been able to agree to something.
So I've read all of the emails and everything else all the citizens have said, so I know that their concerns. And I do believe that's what we ought to do, is table it in good faith that we can come up with a development agreement that gives them a purpose to come up with something, and hopefully we can come to some type of an arrangement that will work for most everybody. We're not going to make everybody happy. It never happens. But I think we can do better than what we see that you've presented to mitigate some of the things. That's my opinion. If I was going to vote right now and we didn't do that, I would vote against the zoning.
I think this is a little bit of interesting exercise, because I don't know what you would think is reasonable here, right? So for us to do this and table it and whatever, like, to me, it's reasonable to, I guess, lower the one closest to the one home by 7 or 8 feet, right? Because we can't have it be lower than the SF1, like, because right now it's SF1, right? So they could build a duplex overlay in that area, right? So
but we can also get other things like what the actual units are going to look like, that type of thing.
I just think that's, but each one of us think,
yeah,
with that looks different, and I don't know, I have a hard time grasping that. I personally think a for sale townhome unit in a neighborhood is what everyone's sort of been asking for, that doesn't enter into the neighborhood. You know, so it's hard for me to understand what would be,
I just think
better.
we can get that and have more of our concerns of our citizens addressed. That's where I'm at.
I think if we're going to go the development agreement route, we need to be very specific about what we want to see on that. Whether that be the height restrictions on the west side, or that I would definitely like to see the height on the back be lower. But it's like Councilmember Brown said, you're looking at 70 feet just to match where it's currently at. So.
It's an hour of sunset.
And I want to make it clear, I think that's fine. Like,
yeah.
But I need to know what other council members want, you know, to make that work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like because we all have, like, for me, for sale is like what I want more than anything, and it's unfortunately the only thing probably we can't put in a requirement, right? Because I think that's the most important thing in the neighborhood right now.
I'll just add one thing to the height discussion if I can. The code does already specify in the RM25 that if they are within a certain distance of a single family, that they have to step the height anyway. So there are provisions against that already in the code. So if the development agreement, again, can be specific to that, because the code does already specify that. So.
But the developer can modify that if he wants in a development agreement, right?
No, so we have that with those orange townhomes by me because of the code. It's all 3 stories except for the one closest to the home is a 2-story because it's required by code. So I don't think it looks very good because there's this one unit that is different than the other ones, but it's because of the setback requirement.
Our development agreement would need to follow existing zoning codes, so we would not be, those would be the guardrails in place already. Is that anything that we're negotiating is starting from a place of our existing zone is the floor.
So if the developer says, I'll go less than that, they can do it, right?
Yes. But we'll
But
never
you can't-
be able
you-
to
You can't put it
negotiate
in
to
a
exceed.
development agreement.
No, we can. They will just never be able to exceed the existing height limits that the zone already has in place.
We can't do the opposite with the development agreement. We can't say, oh, build 10 stories here because the code doesn't allow it, but we can set guardrails probably below it.
And we can provide some type of screening against the other housing, whether it be vegetation or fencing or whatever, right? As part of a development agreement?
Yes, and I will need planning staff's help. I believe, doesn't RM25 already require?
Elizabeth might want to stay up here.
Just getting steps.
Isn't there already some screening required between RM25 and single family, or am I thinking of one of the other zones?
I'm not sure off the top. I can take a cursory look at the code. I know for sure that there is the height difference. It says if a structure is within 50 feet of a single family district, your max height is 35 feet for a sloped roof and 30 feet for a flat roof. But I don't know if there might be something hidden in like our landscape code that specifies that, but I'm not aware of that off the top of my head.
Can we ask the developer, before we get into like too much more back and forth, like if the developer is okay with us tabling this pending a development agreement, then I think that's the way we should go right now, because then everyone's in agreement. So why continue to argue about it? But you know, if they're not, you know, and they don't have to be, but I'm seeing some head shaking, so I'm thinking it's okay. Is that something we can ask them and get an answer from the developer?
So for me, my point is I don't mind the idea of it, but I would like to know, and I think they should know before they leave, those ideas.
Yeah.
You know, just saying, you know, we've seen these emails and we want to address those concerns. I don't think we should table it and leave without 3 council members sort of agreeing what those should be.
Yeah.
That's all my point. Like, I don't mind tabling it for it if that's the appropriate thing, but I don't want to just table it saying development agreement and all 5 of us have a very different view of what.
Yeah, and I hate to, because, you know, if we table it and bring it back, then everyone's going to get a notice of a public hearing again. We're all going to be back here. And then if we don't like that development agreement, then we've accomplished absolutely nothing but wasting more time and effort and energy.
So this wouldn't come back as a public hearing. It would come back as an action item.
If we table the rezone, because we're not making a decision on the rezone.
But we've already had the public hearing.
You've already had the public hearing, so you're just tabling the decision.
So then folks may never know that we're revisiting the topic unless.
They'll know.
Well, I mean,
it'll be.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense to me. If we don't make a decision on the rezone, how we don't have to notice it and tell folks that we're making a decision on the rezone in the future.
It'll be noticed, just not as a public hearing.
Well, again, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me if we're not making a decision on the rezone.
So, I agree with Councilmember Brown. I feel like I don't know what the direction is here besides a general interest in a development agreement, but I do not think there's consensus on what that looks like, and I don't know if the consensus is we like the project as is and we want to make sure that stays, or if we want to look at heights, that piece I think is pretty unclear.
I'm most interested in the height against the western units and the access as far as pedestrian out to 7500 South. If you have a lot of access that they can actually walk, that means people are going to be parking out on 7500 South and walking into the project. And I don't think that's what our citizens want. I think that needs to be gated. If you put a dog run in there, it needs to be fenced dog run and not with pedestrians to be able to come in. Those are probably my two major considerations.
I have mixed emotions about that last part, because if they can't build anything there, it'll be open space, and then the neighbors could walk.
Well, there's a driveway with access, okay?
Right, but I'm sure they won't just leave it like
that
trash or something.
they can make so that it doesn't go right on through. Those are probably two of my major concerns.
I think we also have to be very careful about the discussion of not wanting people to walk on a public street. Like, even if it is like generally to your neighborhood, we can't tell people where they can and can't walk on a public. Yeah, no, I get that, but I'm saying it's getting into a little bit of an uncomfortable topic for me, because
I want to clarify, I heard, and I could be wrong, with these comments, I'm hearing I apologize, I wrote it down, the street name that comes to a dead end right behind, not referring to the easement, but referring to Drainey Way.
I think he meant the easement, right?
Maybe it was the easement.
He meant the easement.
I just want to make sure that easement out doesn't become a thoroughfare for everybody to walk back and forth all the time.
Yeah. Thank you.
And maybe that's already considered, but I don't, it doesn't say here. He would like to talk to us?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Come on up, John.
If that's okay with you, I apologize. So we've been over quite a few topics, and I can address a lot of these. I don't have, we've seen development agreements on multiple properties, and I don't have an issue with doing that, but I just want to note that a lot of these issues are either mitigated by code or the nature of the project itself. The transition between the heights is 7 feet, but we are anyway looking to make a product that's going to integrate with the property itself. So we will absolutely consider that when making those plans with the planning staff. Now, as far as 7,500 is concerned, and access to 7,500 is concerned, Mr. Dan Peters is absolutely correct. That easement is exclusively for him and the Castle residents. That land is going to be virtually unusable for us regardless. So when we applied for this rezone, the concept that we had submitted, that land, I didn't know about the easement initially, and I learned about it after I had applied. And so on there, it's showing some open space, and regretfully, we applied with the concept plan that we did. I apologize for any confusion there, but that will be, we're happy to put a fence there. I'm not sure what the restrictions of the code are. We might even have to put one there, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm happy putting measures in place that will restrict that. As far as the for sale for rent thing goes, I've never owned a rental property. I've never built a rental property in my life. We've sold to one, as far as I can remember, we've sold to one person who's used one of our properties as an investment property, but the rest have all been for sale to individual families who we've then gone to further service in their warranty, etc., and work with. So as far as that's concerned, I'm happy to put some stipulations in I think it'd be an HOA or the CCR agreement, but happy to put stipulations in there stating that, there are certain restrictions on short-term rentals or even rentals in and of itself. I'm fine with a development agreement, but I guess I just want to say that a lot of these things are inherently mitigated with the current uses that we have. So, yeah, that's kind of it.
I heard Councilman Regettle talking about a motion, so I don't know if he'll be ready in a second for a recommendation. But the one, and I've said this before when rezones have been in front of our council and just trying to provide some of the challenges that cities run into specifically. Earlier this summer, there's a group called the Utah Foundation. They do surveys across the state asking what is most important to residents in Utah. And this year when they did it, the number one issue was housing affordability. And the number two issue was elected officials not listening to them. And so this becomes really challenging as we talk about how we need more housing if we're going to solve the affordable housing challenges that we have. And so it puts us in a really tight, difficult spot. It's not just all of our cities, or just Midvale City. It is all cities, really in the state, and especially along the Wasatch Front, who are dealing with these challenges. It is, as we look at what the state is doing specifically, every year the state legislature threatens cities to take away our rights, to take zoning out of our hands so that you can't even come here and talk to us and we all live here with you. That is always a threat of looking at that, of getting rid of parking requirements, because with housing affordability, cities are blamed for it. And we try to show them time and time again all the work that we are doing, but it's just the reality that that's the way the state feels. And as the state is looking at what they can do, homeownership is a big push, and missing middle housing is a big push. And missing middle housing is townhomes. I mean, that's what, not necessarily single family homes, not necessarily high density. So this just becomes challenging for us, I think, as we look at zoning. A big piece of this, and it's been talked about as a little bit, but how do we have these transition areas so you don't necessarily go from massive commercial buildings and warehouses directly to single family homes, and you kind of have a buffer. And I think there's a lot of folks that would view townhomes as kind of a good buffer between State Street and a single family neighborhood. Now, of course, for those of you who are right up on it, it may not feel that way. And I think that's what this council is trying to address. But it is something we continuously hear, and again, just a challenging spot. We want to make sure that everybody is heard, is part of the process, and also trying to address really real challenges that our state has. And frankly, for me, trying to keep the state off of our back, because they say all the time, Governor Cox also earlier this summer was talking to counties. It was a conference of all the counties in the state, and he said, and this is in the news, I am putting cities on notice. If you do not start doing this work to build more densely and smaller lot sizes, the state will do it for you. And that is their threat to take away zoning from us. So just the challenge, just part of the landscape that, again, I hope that folks don't view this as we're just not listening. It is we have real pressures that we receive, and we, in many ways, are trying to protect our communities from going down that path, and that means we have to make really hard decisions.
And I appreciate the mayor bringing some of that up. I considered it earlier, sort of about the state. It seems very likely that it could happen, as more states, especially, unfortunately, those that have multiple freeway entrances and multiple tracks lines. Midvale didn't originally have that when it was founded in the early 1909, but it does now. And I definitely am pretty hard on developers normally. I generally think not, oh man, this is the best we're going to get, we should take it attitude. I honestly think with the access to State Street, for sale townhomes that don't even run sort of the entire length of the property next to the single family homes is a good product, right, for that purpose, without you know, if we were to say, no, we're gonna zone all State Street to be single-family homes, then the state would absolutely take away our right to do this. And you could get 6, 7-story apartments right up next to your home, and we could do nothing about it. The height, I think code probably already does cover it, but you know, we're talking something that's pretty close to the single-family home, and I don't even mind making sure that it is, right? Whatever that number is, 7 feet or 8 feet lower, because I also agree, I don't want to live next to I don't want to have a garden that now has a, 50-story wall, but I also can't tell someone, if we didn't rezone it and they built a home there, it could be that height too, right? And I think that's fair. So it is something I think for people to think about is we are, as the mayor said, trying to balance interest between sort of a storm from the state, putting requirements on us, balancing the interest of current residents, but also future residents. This provides an opportunity for other people to move into Midvale. And I think Midvale is great. And we have for sale townhomes and rental townhomes in our neighborhood. And the rental townhomes are good. I have some good neighbors from them. They change a little bit more. The for sale are phenomenal. They're there 10 years or so before they sort of move. And I think you'd be surprised at how much they'll add to the community.
Councilmember Gettle, I'm looking at you.
I would not wish to make a motion because I think I have a different view of what that motion would be. And I still don't think, other than height on the west side of this project, I'm not sure that we've come to a consensus among 3 or more council members what we would even want to see in a development agreement. So again, I think we're just back kind of at square one where we were before, trying to figure out what the heck to do next. So if someone else would like to make a motion, I'd be thrilled to consider their motion. Is there anything other than height on the west side of the project that, other than the easement, which seems to be taken care of by code, so there's nothing we need to put in a development agreement about that?
The only other thing is what those units are gonna look like. In other words, we'll be able to have some say at what they become. And they could just build boxes, or they could have something that looks aesthetically nice.
But they would have to still follow code on what they look
True,
like.
but some architecture looks not very good, and other architecture looks really nice.
Which I totally agree with. And there's townhomes I don't like here or not, but we don't get that say with them. To me, that's a little.
Well, we don't if we don't have to rezone, but
So
if we have
are
to
you-
rezone, we have that
Yeah.
opportunity.
So are you willing to tell him what that would look like now? Because I
I
don't
would
think
just
it's
like to
fair
I
to
would
do an
like-
architectural rendering, him come in and say, I don't like these corners. Like, that's, I'm having a hard time with this because I again, fine with it, but I would like to know what that would look like before we table it and move on, because it could cost the developer a lot of money and we go, this looks ugly. And I think that would, we don't say that, there are plenty of ugly things.
Well, we actually.
I wish I could say
We
that.
actually do. We have done plenty of development agreements where we say, we look at what they look like and we say they can do that or can't do it. We've done that all the way through a Riverwalk and all of those.
I'm kind of with Councilmember Brown on this one. I'm having a hard time. There's 5 of us up here, so we could give him completely different information that each of us would like to see, and that seems like a slippery slope to me.
My
as
favorite
far
color
as
is
the,
blue.
Development agreement goes, I would definitely be interested on the height on the west side, and it sounds like the easement is taking care of it, so I don't think I would be interested in including what it looks like in there.
But, they could come back with something really nice on that west side. And I'd like to be able to see that, what they come up with.
Could we, I'm just throwing this out there. John, you asked to meet with me after that planning commission meeting. You had renderings there of what you were planning on. It's not in our packet. I don't know, Councilmember, if you've seen that. Can we avoid having that in the development agreement, and you're able to work with Councilmember Glover to make sure that feel like it's a nice looking product?
that was one thing was kind of undecided. I'm not an architect. I'm not a designer. I'm a general contractor, so I have very bad taste when it comes to this kind of stuff. So I defer to the people who know this stuff the best and who want the product. And something that's going to integrate into the community that's not going to stick out, I think, would be best. We've built anything from barn house to craftsman to traditional style homes to contemporary. And from my understanding, well, I'm not going to speak to the exact architectural designs because I don't want to sway one way or another. I am happy to work with the planning commission, the staff, the city council, whoever we need to talk to come to an agreement on what the ideal product looks like here. And also considering heavily the existing land uses that are already here. A lot of those homes behind us, I don't most of the homes here, but a lot of the homes behind us have some really nice designs that we would like to consider and integrate into our design as well. So that's where we're at with the architectural design. Does that make sense?
I have one final question, and then Mayor, I will try to cobble together a motion. Is this something, so if we table this pending a development agreement that addresses height and addresses design elements generally that are acceptable to the council, is that something that will come back directly to us? It won't have to go to the planning commission again and then come back to us? Because my, knowing what time of year it is and when it's best to start building and developing, I don't want to overburden the developer on this particular issue.
It would come back just to the city council. Again, they've had their public hearing before the planning commission. They've now had their public hearing before the city council. At this point, it's in your hands to make that legislative decision.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Did you have something to say?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I just think we'll get a better project by tabling it and having them come back. And it addresses our citizens. To me, that's the way to go.
Mayor, I move that we table ordinance number 2024-022, authorizing a rezone request for lots located at 58 West, 7500 South, and 7444 South State Street, pending a development agreement and pending design elements approved by council.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on that?
I just want to go on the record. I think it's going to look exactly like what we see here. So which is different than a lot of times I've seen this, and so yeah.
Well, if I could ask a question, then Bryant, would you be comfortable voting on the rezone?
I mean, yeah, I think it fits. I think the height will take care of itself on the thing, but I mean, I understand the citizens' concern. I'm just letting them know because they're going to think it's going to look different. It's not.
I guess in the end,
and I feel bad about that.
If you guys work on a development agreement and you come back to us and that's approved, then you didn't really waste any time or effort. You've done a development agreement that you now can use moving forward for the project. So
the other thing that, I don't know, I'm right at this, but if we just do a zoning tonight and some other company ends up buying, they buy the property, they end up selling it, it could go into whatever.
Right.
If a development agreement goes along with the property, so whoever buys it has to develop it that way. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So to me, that gives us safety that it'll be developed the way we want it. Just a general rezone is guaranteeing us absolutely nothing.
Right, and I'm more speaking for the citizens' sake. I think because of the way our zoning laws work, the heights on that end are probably going to feel like it's tiered or something, and it's going to look really similar to what we see. And so I'm afraid they're going to be like, we did all this, you didn't listen, and so I feel bad for a lot of people involved. We're pushing it out, and again, I just think it will look similar. We've done some before where they aren't. This one just feels like it will look the same, so that's why, I don't want to make the wrong impressions for people because I think, like I said, his impact on it is pretty small compared to maybe what he could do or something along those lines. So again, I'm fine with it, but I think the citizens should know when it's done. They're like, hey, we had all this conversations, you tabled it, and it's the same amount of units. It looks the same, and that I just don't know if that's the optics I love when that's the case. That's my point.
We've had a motion.
Yep. We have a motion and a second from Councilmember Robinson. Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Billings.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
No.
Gettle.
Yes.
Okay, that is tabled. I hope that our staff has some direction to be able to work with you and put together a development agreement. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right, on to the next one. Find my place here. Public hearing number B tonight, consider amending section 177912-1, the Riverwalk Zone of the Midvale Municipal Code, which clarifies the relationship of the Riverwalk Zone to other applicable zones in the geographic area and deletes several uses from the list of authorized uses in the zone. We're going to hear from Ben Aline.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This amendment to the Development Code was motivated by public comments that staff received and also council members. And it's relatively simple. The first item is a housekeeping item in a way. The Riverwalk Zone, it functions like an overlay in essence, and we are just clarifying that with the language that we are inserting. And it's hard to see. We're just adding a portion of the sentence that states that if there's a conflict with the underlying zone, which is the Bingham Junction zone, then the Riverwalk zone governs. And the Riverwalk zone is, geographically speaking, really a small portion within the Bingham Junction area. On this little map here, there is a sort of an orange reddish outline, and that's the Riverwalk zone. And with this amendment, we are actually adding language that only addresses two areas within the Riverwalk zone. So this is quite a unique setup that was originally created in the Bingham Junction area. The whole area has sub-areas. And so if you look on here, I sort of penciled that in a little bit. The northern edge, sort of the lightest bluish, greenish color is sub-area 1. Then the somewhat darker greenish area is sub-area 2, and you actually see that actually jumps over 7200 South. So it's only a portion of that is within Riverwalk. And then there's also sub-area 5, the grayish area, and that's not really addressed here in that sense much at all, at least not with the users. So what's important to remember is there's a housekeeping item where we just define more clearly the overlay zone really is an overlay, and then the item that's where the public input came in is what you see here. We are deleting some uses, for example, major public utilities. That's, for example, a power plant, which is something we wouldn't really expect in this area in the first place. Fireworks stands, maybe not the best idea since it's very close to a park, a lot of vegetation. And we have outdoor storage, warehousing and distribution, automobile-related uses like a gas station, car wash, and car repair. Here, this hatched area, that's the area for which the uses that we are deleting, it applies to this area. So sub-area 5 within the Riverwalk zone isn't affected by that. And this is the recommended motion.
just to clarify, so those deletions are not included in that sub-area 5 where look like the
Right, yeah, and that's the unique thing within this zone. You have uses that differ by sub-area. So this zone is more differentiated out than many other zones we have. Normally we have one zone and then one list of uses for that entire zone. And that's a little bit different here. And the underlying idea is that neighbors who live in this area were concerned that they would see a negative impact in their residential environment from some of these uses.
Thank you.
Question.
Sure.
The way I look at this, car washes, we already have car washes in these areas.
Yes.
Filling stations, gasoline stations, we already have them. Okay? So trying to say that we can't have those when they're already there, they're affecting the residents right now. Okay?
Yes.
So I'm concerned that we're doing something against what we've already done. Secondly, I think that this is pointed at one company. So I think it's like spot zoning or whatever. We're doing this just to get rid of one problem that the city thinks they see, and also the citizens.
Just to clarify, it wouldn't impact any existing businesses, one. And two, any business that had any pending application for any of these uses. Let's say there's a car wash that has an application in now. We wouldn't be able to deny any pending applications based on what we decide tonight, because those folks would be grandfathered in.
And does that company in question have an application in?
Yes.
So they would not be impacted by this change.
So go ahead.
Their application is, any current applications that I'm aware of in these zones are complete and are vested under the existing zoning laws as they stand prior to this proposed amendment.
And it would be the one in question has one?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think that.
So I think what I heard from the residents of this neighborhood was a very specific desire to not interfere with that process, but to protect the neighborhood from a second, third, or fourth business of the same type going into this area. Because, I mean, honestly, if you drive back there, there's some office space back there, but most of it is residential, and it's a very good mixed use residential of single family homes, for sale condos, townhomes, apartments. So that was the concern of the neighborhood, was to protect future development there, not to step on anyone's current or pending rights to that land.
And this is a hard topic in general with that area, because I've had some people from that HOA reach out to me who want to remain nameless because they view opposite of the HOA, and they don't want to, become enemies of the board and whatnot, where they don't necessarily agree with what the HOA president came and said, and they're fine with the business in question moving in and stuff. And I don't know how to, honestly, I didn't know how to address it. I said, thanks, because it seems touchier than it should be. So it's an interesting situation to deal with. I'm just saying it's not necessarily unanimous what we heard. But I am glad to know that if there's a current application, it would not be impacted, and if they have one in, because I do feel like I would not have appreciated that if I was on Councilman Glover's side, I guess, on that point.
Maybe one side note, the car wash is actually within the sub-area 5, so that's really not affected by the cancellation of some of the uses.
And just generally speaking, well, one, I want to thank Vendeline and the planning department, because this area, the way that it was set up, 20 years ago now, may be suboptimal. Because it's at this point now where there's different types of development happening, these areas and sub areas and everything just make it a very unique type of mess that we haven't necessarily dealt with before. So it's one of those things too that this is pretty much a resident-led initiative, which I don't think that I've seen anything like this before, where residents got together and said, we would like these text amendments. And, you know, it's, again, an exercise in, you know, just petitioning your government for changes that you like to see. And we tell people all the time, come and make those recommendations to us. We listen to you, and here's our opportunity to listen.
Okay. If there are no further questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
Is this a public hearing?
I would entertain a motion on the public hearing. Thank you, Councilmember.
Mayor, I move to open public comment.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
All right, we'll open up the public comment. Do we have any public comments on this item?
Mayor, I move that we close public comment.
Second.
A motion and a second to close the public comment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, public comment is closed. We'll move on to the action item.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 2024-023 to amend section 17-7-9.12.1 Riverwalk Zone of the Midvale Municipal Code, which clarifies the relationship of the Riverwalk Zone to other applicable zones in the geographic area and deletes several uses from the list of authorized uses in the zone, with the findings noted in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rory, would you call roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Glover.
No.
Sorry. Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
and Billings.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 4-1. Thank you. Public hearing, item number C, consider rezoning approximately 6.7 acres of properties located at 7490 South Holden Street, 7505 South Holden Street, 7576 South Holden Street, 7594 South Holden Street, 7608 South Holden Street, 7620 South Holden Street, 7652 South Holden Street,
Etc.
7660 South Holden Street and 7676 South Holden Street from the Clean Industrial Zone to the Main Street Form-Based Code Zone. Information regarding the proposed regulations, prohibitions, and permitted uses that the property will be subject to if the rezone is adopted can be found in the Midvale City Code 17711. Johnny, you made that very long, so.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a bit of a
appreciate it.
mouthful. Sorry about that. Thanks, Mayor. So this is directly west of us across Holden Street. So these are the properties in question, as shown on the presentation, as long as everybody can see that. This is obviously the zoning map amendment criteria. We believe it meets number 3. Land and its surrounding environs has changed or is changing to such a degree that is in the public interest to encourage redevelopment of the area or to recognize the changed character of the area. You recently approved, just north of us on Main Street, another extension of Main Street. This is furthering, the goals of Main Street, the Main Street area, the small area plan that was adopted in 2018. We have met with a number of property owners and business owners that are across from us. They had some concerns initially about this. Whatever use is located on those parcels, if it is non-conforming to Main Street form-based, they are automatically grandfathered. So we're obviously not kicking anybody out because we can't do that. The railroad company, I talked to them, and just a little bit of background in the staff report. I put in there, the planning commission actually recommended denial of this. There was some discussion with a property owner about, they have some potential plans to expand their business on their property. We've met with that business owner, and we believe that no matter which ordinance they're under, they'll still be able to perform the functions that they want to, if they do indeed want to expand their business. I have a motion here. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to help.
That was the main reason that they denied it, is for that business, is that correct?
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
Ready for motion?
Yep.
Or-
For the public hearing.
Do we not?
Mayor, I move that we open public comment.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to open public comment. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. We'll open up public comment. Do we have any public comments on this item? So you can step forward to the microphone, state your name for the record, and be given 3 minutes.
Mayor, I move that we close public comment.
Hold. You're moving back there. I don't know if you're just stretching,
Oh,
so
sorry.
I want to just make sure. If you're going to come up, all right, you're going to. Okay,
No, he made a motion in a second. Do we have to vote on it then?
You can withdraw.
I withdraw my
Okay,
motion.
thank you. Come on up and just please state your name.
My name is Robert Blackmore. I own and operate Brick Design. And I've met with planners. They've said that we're going to be grandfathered in until there's a change of ownership or a change of business there. I just wanted to just get a little bit of assurance that that's the case. I mean, we're willing to do what we can to help out on that. But, I understand a lot of the things that have been brought up tonight are very valid points as far as affordable housing and owned housing and everything else. My kids have struggled just like everyone else. But like I say, this is like a family-owned business. Two of my children are employed with us, and basically, I just want to know that we're going to be okay through this. That's it.
And somebody else can correct me if I'm wrong, because I know I had looked into this a little more too. And my understanding, yes, grandfathered in, and then even if you sell, that the next owner has a year to continue. Maybe I don't want to speak out of turn.
So this nonconformance will continue to run with the land until it's considered abandoned. So if you can sell to someone who wants to do the exact same thing as you. They may be limited in the ways that they can expand it. And this zone has a little bit of a unique, does allow for certain expansions that other zones don't. But once that use stops for a year, it will be considered abandoned, and then it will not be able to be restarted.
Okay, that's all I need. Thank you.
But you'll be able to sell it if you want, and they can, same business, and they can be right there if they want.
Okay.
As long as they do it.
That's good to know, because I don't know that I'll live
As long as they do
forever.
it within a year.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Okay. Any other public comments on this item?
Mayor, I move that we close public comment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Okay, public comment is closed. And moving on to the action item, I would entertain a motion unless there's any other conversation.
No. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2024-0-24 rezoning the following parcels from the clean industrial zone to the Main Street form-based code zone: 7490 South Holden Street, 7505 South Holden Street, 7576 South Holden Street. How did I do this? 7594 South Holden Street, 7608 South Holden Street, 7620 South Holden Street, 7652 South Holden Street, 7660 South Holden Street, and 7676 South Holden Street with the finding noted in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you. Rory, you contribute that second to whoever you want there.
Give it to Heidi.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rory, will you call roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
Billings. Yes. And Glover.
Aye.
Okay, our final public hearing of the night. Consider a Midvale City initiated I should say that passed. Thank you. Final public hearing of the night, consider a Midvale City initiated text amendment to amend section 1731 of the Administration and Enforcement chapter of the Midvale City Municipal Code. These changes add a new criterion to the zone map amendment criteria and establish zoning code amendment criteria.
Yes.
That's Elizabeth. Thank you.
I swear my motion's not as long as Johnny's is, though. So yes, this amendment basically makes our zoning map amendment, which we have already discussed quite a bit tonight, a little bit clearer, and then establishes some zoning code amendment criteria. On the left, you'll see the rezone and zoning map amendments. Most of the amendments just make it easier to digest and more concise. We did change the first one to say that proposed rezoning promotes the objectives of the general plan and doesn't say that it's necessary to comply because the general plan is not a binding document. And then we also added that it meets the Utah State Code that just generally talks about the land use objectives. So we added that to both these sections. The new section that we are proposing to establish is for zoning code amendments. Like this one, you'll see that we have found some very creative ways to fit those under our real rezoning criteria is how we've had to do them in the past. So this just establishes some clear criteria for us. Does it promote the objectives of the general plan? Does it meet those Utah State Code purposes that we talked about? Does it more clearly explain the original intent or make interpretation more straightforward, or was it a clerical error or a mistake? So those are the proposed changes. And, I guess I included a copy of the Utah State Code portion there as well, and then also a motion.
Okay, thank you. Do you have public hearing on this item? Is there a motion to open up the public hearing?
Motion to open public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing's open. Do we have any public comment on this item? So you may step forward to the microphone, state your name for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes. Seeing none?
Mayor, move that we close public comment.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to close public comment. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Okay, public comment is closed. Thank you. Move on to the action item, unless there's any other questions.
I have one question. In the staff report here, it says public notice has been sent to affected entities, and I'm just wondering who those affected entities could be or were. Because if it's not anything specific to, like, an actual proposed rezone, like what entities were notified?
Right, it's a list that's put out by the state, and that comes directly from state code. Off the top of my head, I can't quite remember, but let me pull a list here.
Is it just one of those, like, not necessarily anything other than we have to notify, like, entities based on state law? And
Yeah, it's like surrounding municipalities, so Cottonwood Heights, Sandy City, Murray, it's UDOT, it's UTA, it's those.
I didn't
are
know
the
if that meant
affected
like
entities.
someone who had a pending like rezone request in or something like that. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2024-0-25, approving the text amendment to section 17-3-1 of the Administration and Enforcement chapter of the Midvale City Municipal Code as provided in the attachments with the finding noted in the staff report.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Lori, would you call roll, please?
Yes, Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Move on to our consent agenda with just one item. Consider minutes of September 3rd, 2024. Unless there's any changes to those minutes, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Councilmember Gettle,
Yes.
Billings,
Yes.
Glover,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
and Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. One discussion item tonight, Jordan Bluffs development discussion. Looks like we're going to hear from Adam.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just introduce this. This is just a discussion item. Representatives from Gardner and Wasatch are here to kind of walk you through their latest proposal or their latest concept idea for the View 78 area within Jordan Bluffs. If you remember, about a year or so ago, there was another concept that came before you, and there was some concern with that. They've gone back and redesigned it. They're working, obviously Gardner's working now with Wasatch, and they will kind of walk you through the concept. This is just to get your feedback. There are no decisions to be made tonight, but just to get some initial feedback and some thoughts, so as they move forward, if things need to change and be amended, this is kind of the time to give them your thoughts. So I'll turn the time over to Dave from Gardner, and Adam and Eric from Wasatch.
Come on up. And just please state your name for the record.
David Dennison, Gardner Company. Thanks, Adam. Like he said, we came before. We've talked to staff and planning commission and to many of you about Jordan Bluffs and kind of our first residential phase. And some of the issues that we had, if you'll remember, were a lot of the buildings were very similar, looked like more of a college campus were some of the comments. So we've done a lot of work. We've partnered up, obviously, with the LHM group and also with Wasatch to work on this. And we've gone through, probably 5 or 6 iterations internally until we've kind of landed on this plan, which has 4 58 plexes, a clubhouse, and then I think it's somewhere around 128 townhomes. So it gives us more of a mix, which was one of the comments that we had before. We're actually really excited about this. We believe it conforms with more of the intent and gives more of a variety to, to this first phase. And we're trying to get, not only conform with Adam with our first, we have to do one of these work sessions before we could submit formally our large-scale master plan. So that's what we're trying to do. So Eric and Adam are both here, and
I just wanted to add one.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam.
Will you just state your name?
Yeah, Adam Langford, Wasatch Residential Group, 620 South State Street, Salt Lake City. I just wanted to add a comment because this came up when I was here for the Wasatch project. We're extending Sagini, so that's the road that kind of winds through the project. But one design idea that we would love some feedback on, what we'd like to do with Sagini through this portion of the project is actually dedicate on-street parking. So you can do that. So you'd have on-street parallel parking, and maybe you have bump outs, but you'd identify that actual parking within the street. That doesn't count towards our on-site parking that's required by the ordinance, but like Sagini to the north, you've got cars parking on that, and it just makes a really awkward road. And so this way, we'd like to actually dedicate by striping where the parking would go on the street. And I think that will help solve the problem that we're experiencing north. Just to add, we've got a lot of open space, a great amenities package. These are rear-loaded townhomes with garages. The 58 plexes have some garages. So it's, once again, it's a complicated site, complicated soil and dirt, and we're doing the best we can, but we think we've got a great layout with really good product types and a really good amenity package. But we'd love to hear comments from the council.
So when we talk about this property, I always think it's good for the public to know and understand the many options we had at one point. We thought of putting the fitness center here, didn't end up happening. The soccer complex was going to go here, it didn't happen. There was some other cool public amenities.
Indoor surf park.
I couldn't remember exactly what it was. And so for me, I feel like we had a diamond in the rough. We had, 100 acre, I don't know how many acres is in this whole area, and we blew it. We just putting in 4 or 5 story rental units. I mean, they look nice, they're fine, but they'll be forgotten. People will drive through, they'll live, move out. there's nothing here that screams, hey, look at this Midvale project where we have this many acres next to, within a mile of freeway entrances and red and blue lines. Like, there's so many options. And to me, I was really hoping eventually we'd see, a bunch of cool stuff come in, and, from 78th down to here, it'll just be rental units so far. And so it makes me a little sad. Seems uninspired. If I'm being honest, I don't think anyone's going to like to live on the east side of this property. Everyone will hate it because of our, snow removal and whatnot. And I support them. I would like my road to be cleared, so would these guys. And so it just feels like you guys build nice looking things. They look fine. Like, they're not trashy by any means. I like them individually. I just wish we did other things besides just rental units. And it's making me sad because it won't turn over, right? You build good enough units that these will last 50 years or so, and who knows if we'll see anything else. So, dozens and dozens and dozens of acres, really the same thing. I know they look different, but it's really just the same, right? It's rental units, which is fine. We need them. But I was really hoping we'd have some mixed use on some of these properties, at the minimum, some mixed use, something that would provide something for the rest of the community to come to, whether that's something on the corner, on the main roads, or on the frontage, or something to say, we're building a town center because this is just a place, this will require everyone to drive everywhere. Right? There's no shopping, there's no convenience, there's nothing. This is very slightly more dense, 1980s housing to me. And so it makes me sad. It looks fine. And like I said, I think you guys build good looking stuff. I just was expecting, a little more vision, I guess, for the future. We were told that this was to say our feelings on the property. So I did. There's no decisions being made.
No one wants to
I'm just saying, if you had a mixed use or something along those lines, I would like that. And that would just bring way more to the area than just what we have.
Yeah, and that's what we want to hear. Thank you. We do appreciate your comments. We have been working with staff to clarify our park, so we still have our 15-acre park. We've done a lot of work, Adam and I, to clarify the amenities and make sure that we're still planning on that. We're still planning on doing office and mixed-use retail, but a lot of it is, quite frankly, we're kind of waiting for the market to turn to before we can get, there's something like 30% office vacancy right now in the county.
And some are turning over to residential. I get the market,
yeah,
but I still was hoping to see something else.
Yeah, but we have worked really hard to clarify the park, and we are planning on doing that. And then we had that grand opening on the park that we have turned over, which is a nice amenity to the city. So thanks.
One note that I have, and I mentioned it maybe 2 weeks ago when Adam was here, just the pickleball courts. I like pickleball. I play pickleball. But I think in this specific area, right now, we have enough pickleball courts that aren't necessarily utilized to their fullest. There's pickleball courts in the Zions park that we just dedicated that, some months they are used, some months they're not. The other pickleball courts off of Parkview, which have since, I think, required a key fob to get into. So I guess that does, limit the folks who can use that court. So I don't know. My biggest fear is that pickleball is a fad that, in a couple of, maybe 10 years or so, we're going to wonder, why we have all these pickleball courts and no one plays anymore. So I don't know if there's something else that you could do with that, but, I don't necessarily see the need for more pickleball courts in that area. I mean, that's, again, I think I mentioned it to Adam, it's your property, do whatever you want with it, but that would be my suggestion. And it's feedback that I've received from residents as well. It's like, why do we have all these pickleball courts? The other thing I would say is, I like this project. I agree with Councilmember Brown. Like, you know, all of the development in Jordan Bluffs has been rental units, but I also know from experience that you guys aren't hurting for people who want to get into those units. So, you know, you're fulfilling a market need in that respect. But another thing I would suggest, if it's possible at all, as far as mixed use goes, even something as simple as like a coffee shop, a cafeteria, anything at all. You know, there are so many people who live in this area right now who, if they could just walk to, you know, a coffee shop or something, that coffee shop is going to get an incredible amount of business just with the already existing people. And if you add all of these folks as well, you know, something we have to do something that is more than just, you know, Parkview has its pool, this place is going to have its pool, just something for people to gather and commingle with other communities that are nearby. I hate how, you know, everything is separated. Like Parkview does their own thing, San Moritz does their own thing, Talavera does their own thing. If we could have more of a community interaction and a place where people can come from these different apartment communities that are all in the same general area, I think that would be a very nice amenity for the community.
I have an idea. Could
I'm sorry, Nancy, this is not a public hearing. So we're happy to take comments either after the meeting if we have a chance to talk, or
I would love to hear your thoughts, so if you find me after the meeting.
And that was why I always sort of give the history, because a pool, obviously, you know, a fitness center would be a gathering place for the entire city of Midvale, right? The soccer would be broader. It would have been broader because it would have been maybe not everyone in Midvale, but the whole county, right? Places for people to come and gather. What did you call it? An indoor surf thing?
Indoor surf park.
Again, that's a very select group of people, but again, gathering place for people. And now what it'll instead, and I like that we had those ideas, and some of them were not necessarily your fault. Well, two of them are definitely not your fault, the soccer and the fitness center, but you know, you kind of talk about them. Me as a council member out to citizens, something's coming here for you guys that have been here for 50 years, and instead there's these apartments that have gated pools, right? Like there's nothing for other residents to even come and venture over here, besides maybe a park that'll eventually be done, and part of that Zion's. So it's just a letdown, right? When you try to tell people, here's this huge area and we're gonna have some cool, you know, activities for you. The city doesn't necessarily have a ton. So this will be a cool place for you to swim or surf, which still seems crazy to me, but I guess that's popular or something. And now it's like, well, no, but you could walk around it, I guess, if you wanted to. It's just a big drop off, and you know, I don't know if a lot of the residents trust this development anymore, right? Because they kept hearing a bunch of cool stuff's going to go in. And it hasn't, and I appreciate the market has reset a little bit, and that's a problem. But that doesn't mean all these citizens are not let down at the same time.
I agree with everything that's been said, so I'm not going to keep going on that. But I do want to address the street parking. I actually really like the designated street parking on that. Hopefully there might be some addition of like designated bike lanes too that could go into that somehow people aren't parking in the designated bike lanes. So that would be something I would be interested in, but that's really all I have to say about that.
And I was going to talk about that too. I'm just throwing this out here. I don't know the extent of the challenges that we're having to the north of here, but if you did, because I was also, my mind was going connectivity within this and bike lane or pathway, something through this road. It gets a little odd because if it's not mixed use, then having a walkable community, but not having those other amenities. And there's parts of me that likes the idea of on-street parking, but even if there was on-street, and I'm just throwing this out there, if there was on-street parking on one side and then even a protected bike lane on one side, or like walking pathway that goes along the road but has a barrier, because it looks like, and I'm looking within our packet where I can see this in a little more detail, and it was mentioned the bulb outs or whatever is happening there, and so it feels like if on one side you just didn't do that, instead put that money into some sort of protected bike lane and then parking on the other side. That's my idea, that maybe can do a little bit of both, but.
I guess, Glenn, I have a question about the bulb outs and the parking on the streets. What bothers me is snow removal.
Yeah, I would just.
And I love the idea, but I just am concerned about how we get the snow out of there.
Well, and our winter parking ordinance would.
That's true. You're right. I hope so. I sell snow blowers.
With our winter parking ordinance, though,
they have to be off the street.
They'd have to be off the
So
street
how do
during
you
a
do
snowstorm. Where would they go?
I mean, it's the same problem all over, but.
We would either plow them in, or they would have to adhere to the ordinance. You're going to get complaints probably either way. Bulb outs are also difficult to maintain. It's tough for a street sweeper to make those tight turns, but just so you're aware, you'll need to set the maintenance expectation.
So that's why I asked.
Yeah.
So Sagini Way would be our snow removal, but the rest of that property would be theirs?
Correct. And I guess same with a dedicated bike lane. We would need to know what the maintenance expectations are for that and staff and fund accordingly.
I really do love the idea. It's just, it gives me a concern.
Okay, any other feedback?
I do like also the different types of units, instead of just everything is just an apartment complex, looks like everything other apartment complex. That part I like.
Is this going to be reminiscent of any of your other properties like Parkview? I mean, I know there's a mix of apartment buildings, townhomes, quad set up there. Is it going to be similar to that?
Yeah, it'll be similar. They'll obviously look different on the outside, but yeah.
Same kind of concept. Yeah.
Units inside, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Do you need anything else from us at this time?
No, we appreciate the feedback and we'll keep working with staff and start moving through the process.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we do have a closed session, but we also have an RDA meeting. So what I'm going to ask is that we recess the city council meeting, we move into RDA, which is a pretty quick agenda, and then once we're done with that, we will come
Mayor,
back.
I move that we temporarily adjourn our city council meeting and enter RDA meeting.
Thank you. We have a motion to temporarily adjourn the council meeting to enter into the RDA meeting. Is there a second?
No, failed.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Great.
While you're doing that, Councilmember Robinson, I've heard on good authority that when you're speaking, it's hard to hear, so you might want to move that microphone a little bit further.
Do I have that problem as well?
No.
My wife did not comment that.
I did
that
notice
she couldn't hear you.
when I watched the planning commission meeting, I did notice I was kind of surprised that if you're not right on it, it was harder to hear at times.
It was hard for Charlie to hear as well.
Yeah. Okay, good to know. Try to speak into your microphones.
Singers with
All right, it's 9:40 p.m. Welcome, everybody, to the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City. I hope we're all ready, because I'm going to ask Rory to call roll.
Yes. Board Member Glover.
Here.
Billings. Here. Gettle.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
And Robinson. Here.
Okay, thank you. Move into public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda tonight may address the redevelopment agency at this time by stepping to the microphone and stating their name for the record. Do we have any public comments? Seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda, which is one item. Consider minutes of September 3rd, 2024.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion on that? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes, Board Member Brown.
Here.
Gettle.
Here, but yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Billings.
Yes.
And Robinson.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. Chief Morse, I'm sure right now you're going, I'm so glad I'm taking on this job. It's
How I'm acting
9:40.
tonight is how I act like every Tuesday,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
just.
So thanks for being here. I'm sure you're just having a grand old time. I think Chief Thomas did tell me the other day that he learned way more about city stuff than he ever hoped and dreamed for. So I hope we can do the same for you.
Chief Tom didn't even hang around. Like,
He was
the
out
second
there.
he had the option, he was gone.
All right, we're gonna have to fire him, aren't we, Chase? So, action item A, consider resolution number 2024-24 RDA approving the agreement for artists commission work for the installation of a mural located on the exterior west-facing wall of the parking structure located at 7860 South Bingham Junction Boulevard. Aubrey.
Hello. Good evening. Maybe lighten up the mood a little bit, get some art going in here. So this project's been coming up for about a year. Been working with Zions to get things situated, get the contracts going, and it's pretty exciting moving forward with this finally. So start out, the location here is Jordan Bluffs project area. This is going to be on the outer west-facing wall of the parking structure, and it's, you know, coming right into the city, heading east on Center Street when you're passing Gardner Village and everything. So it's kind of going to be a great welcoming symbol coming into the city from West Jordan. Let's see. I think this is pretty great timing, actually. It is coming to the end of mural season, but there's a lot of upcoming holidays. There's going to be a lot of people frequenting the area for Gardner Village and everything like that. So, yeah, kind of nice push for the end of the year. Bless you. The proposed themes that we came up with Zions was sustainability, innovation, teamwork, and trust. And this is kind of based on their core values. And so these were the 4 themes that were sent out to the artists during the call. The suggested artist that was, top of the list during the selection process, it went through the RFQ and 2 elimination rounds. The first one, based off of their experience and qualifications, and then the second round, they actually sent us renderings that we were able to look at to match the themes that were given. So as you look here on the left, this is actually the proposal that the artist sent. I will show you a picture of it on the wall after this, but I just wanted you to kind of get a look at what the artist sent to us. The background colors are representative of the environment of Utah in general. So as it was explained to us, the bottom cooler layers are reminiscent of the Great Salt Lake, and the artist is willing to kind of play around with that, making the blue tones a little bit more flat, so it represents the salt flats a little bit better. And then as you move up the mountains a little bit, adding a little bit more definition in there, that it's more recognizable for Utah residents, making it reflect more of the Wasatch Mountains there. And there's a cool tie-in that it actually matches the inside of the Zions building, we learned, which is pretty cool for the people that work there. I think it's a cool tie-in to that. Here's the proposal on the selected wall. This is obviously very close up. It's going to look a little bit different from afar. We did discuss with the artist as well, possibly making the book a little bit larger to make it a little bit more obvious that it's a book, maybe bringing that up a little bit, a couple of those grid lines if you see the fine details in there, so that it's more visible when you're coming up over that hill. So we still have a couple of things to work on with the artist, just very small details, but overall the artist was able to include all 4 themes really within this piece. going back, making ties to the Sharon Steel Superfund site, and, you know, looking back on the past, being able to move forward, grow, tying in that sustainability of kind of healing the environment that, you know, we've made these impacts on, and as we move forward in the future, really trying to make a good impact here and, you know, learn from past mistakes that we may have been unaware of, detriment in the future. So yeah, that's the wall there. If you were seeing in your packet, the artist agreement includes the wall agreement with Zions that was previously completed in May. And so we've been working on that with legal, and then the proposed timeline for the art piece is pretty soon just due to weather constraints. So it's September 26th through October 10th, and then give or take a little bit based on the weather. The fiscal impact would be $50,000 commission, which is, you know, they break down that budget for us on how that is being spent. It's a very large wall, and this has been something anticipated for at least a year, if not more, so it's been in the budget. And then just so your reminder that it's a minimum of 10 years that the mural is supposed to be installed on the wall. If anything were to occur that they were to take it down prior to that, there is that prorated where they would, Zions would have to pay the city back about, you know, $5,000 a year if that were to occur. But yeah, we're taking, you know, all of the necessary steps to make sure that that is protected from weather and everything like that.
Is there a guarantee or warranty from the artist that'll last 10 years?
So that is, there's no guarantee, but yes, it is that they do their finest work. And then it is in the contract that the RDA is actually responsible for helping maintain the upkeep of the mural. So it'll really be a responsibility of us to make sure that that stays lively and everything. And that coating on top is a UV protectant and also anti-graffiti. So it should be pretty set.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be our most viewed mural, I think, probably, right, with traffic.
Yes.
And so I personally think this is awesome. I think that they killed it in a good way. And I always ask this question, have we considered, especially this one, a way to light it?
Not that I'm aware of at the moment. That is not something that's been discussed with Zions, but I would definitely love to take that idea back to them.
Especially with, you know, it'll be done when the daylight is shorter and shorter.
Definitely.
I think this one would look, it would not impact, like, you know, anyone's homes or anything, right? If there's a lot of light on that, they could stay there for a while. It would look really cool. You know, what's there now is you know, that cement is, for some reason, it looks unfinished. So this will, I think, do a really good job at cleaning it up. It'd be cool to have a light on it, or multiple lights with how big that is. I also think graffiti probably won't come into play a ton here because it's so big and tall. Like, you know, where someone could reach might not even really be that visible from the main road. So I like the project. I think it's going to look great. If we can light it, I would love to.
I think it's great too. I love the look of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with the graffiti. I've seen it in places I thought I'd never be able to get to.
Well, I mean less likely than some of our other.
But hopefully, you're right.
And I think too, this parking garage is relatively lit up well at night. So I don't know if that would necessarily, you know, provide much lighting on the mural, but it would still be visible at night. You know, not.
They keep those on pretty good.
But
it'd be nicer
like
to.
backlit, so
yeah.
You really wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
It'd be really nice to have some big floods on it.
Yeah.
When I walk my dogs, when I get home, I'll see what I can see on that.
Yeah, give us the lighting updates. Take videos.
But again, I like it too. I think maybe, I'm glad you mentioned the book, because at first, that doesn't necessarily jump out at me like, oh, they're plants coming out of a book. You know, it might, and I think the more that you can, not you personally, but if you have that talent, go for it. the more that they can make that, known that it's a book,
Bigger,
yeah, I think that'd be great. Otherwise, it still looks fine. I mean, it just kind of looks like, flowers coming out of a burlap sack, but I'm not an artist, and
But you know what you're like.
And I'm super grateful it doesn't say like Zion's Bank or anything along those, sponsored by, which I think is part of it, right?
Yes, yeah, the public art guidelines.
But I do, I always worry about that, right? Like, well, if you're gonna put this on our thing, make sure there's our branding, and it's nice that we don't have to. I like it.
And I don't think, we did a similar project on the Overstock.
Yes.
Parking structure. So I will say just generally, working with these very large, Zion's Bank is a $500 million a year company. So, it doesn't necessarily rub me the right way to put our city money, we are not a $500 million a year profit city. So, yeah, I would like to see some of these businesses have a little bit more skin in the game, rather than just getting to be on a committee helping to pick the thing and then not have to pay a dime for it. I mean, it's a no-brainer, of course, why would they say no? But, I think we could do that with smaller business owners maybe, but, when it comes to Zion's and Overstock and places like that, don't charge them the full amount. But, I mean, I think at the very least, they could be responsible for the upkeep of it, if something were to happen to it. I don't know why that has to fall back on us again, but that may be something, a discussion for the future when we do more of these mural projects down the line.
I generally agree with the concept, but that's probably when they'll be like, yeah, we'll pay for it, but also put Zion's Bank, corporation across it too. So, but if we could get them to do more, I would definitely be for that as well.
I just want to, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's also doing this, he anticipated having like brush strokes and more texture to it, correct?
Correct, yeah. He just uses
This won't just be a
images.
flat painting. This will have the brushstroke texture and all of that, which I think is going to add a lot of depth to it,
Yes.
especially if we can get it lit.
Yes.
And he also did say that the book with his method of painting will actually stand out more as well. It would be more defined, and I just wanted to say that. He is well aware that the book is a little lost in this.
Along with the stems blending into the pages,
Yeah.
he did say he is going to, it's much easier for him to make that, look better when he's painting it, that with the digital rendering, it's just putting, photoshopping pieces together, so.
Just as long in the end he doesn't make it so it's like a very specific book that.
Yeah,
like
that was
the
his
title,
intention, was
and
to
it's-
leave it
yeah,
open-ended, no title.
no.
He
Ready
stated
Player
that.
One, put it on there. Tell 'em.
Yeah,
Done.
right? Okay.
Best book.
I'll send him a letter, right?
I also wanted to say too, sorry, Mayor, this artist also is including a sort of protective barrier in the paint for the exhaust fumes from the garage as well. So he's very aware of the need for the longevity in this piece.
So he just did a piece at Mural Festival. Is that
Correct.
Big Mountain Barbell that he's on?
Yes, yeah, the one with the pigeons. Yeah.
Well, that one looks like it's not a painting from afar.
Right? It's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I add just two things, just because whenever we talk about murals, I have to talk for some reason. I'm not sure if it was in the staff report, but did you mention how many muralists that we had apply for this project?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So, go.
For this project, there were 119.
Yeah, so we had 119 muralists from all over the country that applied for this project.
Do you remember how many it was for the Overstock? I mean, it was far less than that.
It was far, it was
Yeah.
down in the, I think it was 20.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was very
Our,
low for Overstock.
our city hall had like 70, I felt like.
Yeah, well, Mural
was-
Fest typically has over 100, so, I mean.
Overstock was also just local artists, and Zion's wanted to open it up nationally, which does also help the pool be a little bit larger.
But we are becoming a place that I think people do want. And then just on the lighting thing, we will work really hard on lighting. One of the things that I think you'll notice, once we get the ones lit up on Main Street, and then if we get this one lit or not, one of the neatest things is when you're flying in and you're looking at the plane if you happen to be on the, the right side of the plane, I guess. And you're looking for Midvale, Main Street, which I always do when I'm flying in anywhere. You all of a sudden find it, and then all of a sudden you see all the murals. Like, you can see them from the plane just as easily. This one is going to be one that just pops out at everybody that flies in at night and looks over and sees as they're flying into Salt Lake. This will just pop out at them, especially if we light it, which is a really neat thing to start having that impact from all these different views. I think it'll be pretty neat. And I was just saying that so that next time you're flying in a plane, look for Main Street, because all of these murals, obviously the ones that face this way, just pop out at you because they look so different than any other building that you're looking at.
So get a seat on the right side of the
Yeah,
aircraft. Got it.
Get a window seat, especially if you're coming at night.
All right, any other discussion? Otherwise, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we suspend the rules and adopt resolution number 2024-24 RDA approving the agreement for artist commissioned work for the installation of a mural located on the exterior west-facing wall of the parking structure located at 7860 South Bingham Junction Boulevard.
Second.
Third.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Rory, would you call roll, please?
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Billings.
Yes.
Robinson. Aye. And Brown.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Thank you. With no closed session, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the RDA, which will re-enter us back into our city council meeting.
Mayor, I motion that we adjourn the RDA and enter back into city council.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Yes.
All right. Welcome back to city council. It's 9:57. We do have a closed session.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
To discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property. I would entertain a motion to enter into a closed session for that reason.
Mayor, I move that we enter a closed session for the reason you just stated.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Rory, if you would call roll, please.
Yes. Okay, Councilmember Billings.
Yes.
Glover.
Aye.
Robinson. Aye. Brown.
Here.
And Gettle.
Yes.